As you can see, even if you die many times, you still won't be able to kill me. Above all, you don't have the determination to win against me. A voice rang out, and the scene showed on Myri's battle with someone. Back to reality, when she was near Arlo, Myri suddenly stopped. Nerio wondered. What? What? Why are you standing there like that? Arlo launched an attack that sent Myri's head flying again. He shouted loudly. Please, stop it. Why are you doing this to me? Myri's head rolled a few times under Haeyoung and Neria's feet. Neria said, Myri, you should attack. Why are you looking at me? Myri spoke up, hey. Determination to win. What is it? Myri asked. Neria was surprised. I see, I know what the problem is. Neria said cheerfully. Why are you guys like this? I broke all the wine because of you, didn't I? I don't like fighting. Arlo shouted angrily. Arlo grabbed Myri's head. He threw his head away and shouted. Get out of here, get out of my sight. Haeyoung also screamed in fear. The head. No, Myri-san was thrown away. You bastard. How dare you lay a hand on Myri? Haeyoung shouted and ran over to hit Arlo's leg. Arlo looked down, and what the hell are you? He raised his hand and punched Haeyoung. He yelled, please, leave me alone. Honestly, just looking at it makes me dislike it, Neria said. There was no other way, Neria said, and two hands suddenly appeared from within Neria. Arlo was kicked straight in the chest by someone's high heel. The force of the explosion was so strong that it sent him flying very far. Let's start over, from the basics, a girl appeared and said. Neria is actually a human. Haeyoung was surprised to know that it was Neria. Neria smiled and replied, no, I can only transform into this form for a little bit, Haeyoung said excitedly. How amazing, so Neria is also this strong. Neria ran off and said. First, let's go find Myri. Haeyoung also ran after and said. Arlo stood up from a distance. Well, the bad guys, they're all gone at last, Arlo said. He looked up at the sky and shouted loudly. Don't come back here again, don't bother me again. Somewhere, someone heard a scream, thinking, a scream. What a noisy day, what's going on? Hyunjin was sitting on a rock, thinking again, no, I should focus on meditating now, I can't let myself be distracted by private thoughts anymore. Hyunjin stood up, raising both hands towards the waterfall. He said, I sincerely pray to the great ancestor Yusumi, please give me strength. Hyunjin opened his eyes wide and continued, I beg you to share your great strength to comfort everyone who died unjustly. I beg you to share your sacred strength. A strange object fell into Hyunjin's hands. He was surprised and thought to himself, oh my god, my ancestors finally answered my prayers, this is not a myth, divine power has finally been bestowed upon me. Hyunjin held the object down in front of him, it turned out to be on Myri's head. He asked curiously, who is it? Hyunjin saw it and was shocked and shouted loudly. Myri's head was in Hyunjin's hands, staring at him. Hyunjin panicked and screamed. What the hell? Hyunjin shouted and threw Myri's head into the air. Myri's head continued to return to the air, he thought to himself, where did I fall just now? Myri completed her body and landed in front of Hyunjin saying, let me ask, Hyunjin was even more panicked now, he shouted, his head had now turned into a human. Myri stood in front of Hyunjin and asked, do you know where Arlo is? Hyunjin was surprised. Hyunjin was stunned with doubt, you scared me to death, you must have extraordinary power. Hyunjin calmed down and said. Hyunjin reached out to Myri and asked, you don't look like someone from here, is this your first time here? It's common for everyone to make the same mistake when they come here, don't worry, I'll be your guide. Myri was confused. I know you want to leave here as soon as possible, but be careful, it's scarier here than outside the forest. Now let's go back to the guild. Hyunjin said and took Myri's hand to lead him away. Myri thought to herself, is he taking me to Arlo? What's wrong, Arlo? Why are you yelling so loudly? Ayaku appeared in front of Arlo and said. Arlo was surprised to see Ayaku. Ayaku. Arlo hugged Ayaku's leg and screamed. There was a weird human who tried to kill me, who said I could live peacefully if I stayed here. Ayaku said. Calm down, Arlo. Arlo kept screaming. He tried to kill me. Ayaku said softly. Calm down. Then he tossed the strawberry in the air. I told you to calm down. Ayaku said. Arlo looked at the strawberry on the ground. Arlo rushed forward and shouted excitedly. Strawberry, give me more. More. Ayaku thought, resting his chin on his hand. I guess more and more people are heading to the outskirts. Stupid bastards. Why do they keep rushing back when they know there's no way out if they go in? I need to strengthen the defenses of the outskirts. Ayaku dumped the basket of strawberries in front of Arlo and said. Don't worry. I'll take care of those pesky problems. Arlo opened his mouth to eat strawberries continuously. Ayaku continued. I hope you can help maintain our guild like you always do and put in a good word for the other leaders. Arlo replied while eating. Yes, I will make sure they never set foot on Jeju Island. I will tell them right away. All right. Thank you for your cooperation. Ayaku said with a smile. Inwardly, he scoffed. What a naive fool. Scene changes to Nakwan Guild. Hyunjin and Myri stand in front of the elevator. Hyunjin says, this is your first visit so you can go to the 50th basement, come on, get in. Myri entered the elevator, thinking to himself, 50th basement floor. Suddenly Hyunjin called him, hey. For a kid like you, this place is a bit difficult to deal with. I hope you can make it up there, don't give up, no matter what anyone says, Hyunjin advised. Myri was suspicious. Basement 50, Myri appeared, the guys there were surprised and asked, who is that, is she a rookie? Just a new kid, a big guy in there mocking, another one saying, the big guy is aiming for him first, don't even think about touching him. Myri was surprised to see them thinking, is this Arlo? No, when did they start increasing in number? This isn't Arlo. Should I kill them all? No, I should start killing one first, I shouldn't kill them all, Myri thought as she walked past them. He met Haeyoung and Naria here, Haeyoung happily said, Myri, you came too, we also came here while looking for you. Naria also added, what a coincidence, I was just thinking about going to pick you up. Myri looked at Naria and asked, who is it? Haeyoung immediately replied, it's Naria, he can transform into this form. Myri understood while Haeyoung was surprised and said, you're really easy to convince. Haeyoung immediately said seriously, now that Myri has been found, let's quickly return to kill Arlo. Since there are still many people alive on Jeju Island, we need to save them. Naria interrupted in protest, impossible. I can't let a good opportunity like this slip away. Naria chuckled and said, Haeyoung wondered, a good opportunity? Naria continued, look around, don't you feel anything, there are many people here who possess something that Myri doesn't have, red eyes are directed towards the three of them. This is Jeju Island's hell on earth, this is a place for those who did not become slaves in Oriakto Island or anywhere else, Naria began to explain. Originally, humans were sent to the slaughterhouse to be used as livestock, however the Nakwan Guild gave him another chance. That opportunity is, the duel challenge, the image of two gloves symbolizes boxing. A ranking scale from 4B to 4F appeared, Naria continued, those who won 10 duels would move up to the next floor, all the way to the end. Once someone reached the 50th floor, they would be able to choose to leave or live on Jeju Island. On the contrary, if you were defeated 5 times, you would immediately be turned into a pet. This is also the first time I know about the existence of a place like this in the slaughterhouse, where humans will be forced to compete with each other. But I don't know what benefit this will bring to the zombies by building this place, Naria said. Haeyoung exclaimed, well done Naria, how did you find out so much? Naria smiled and replied, I don't know, when you asked, I could only smile like this as an answer. Haeyoung hesitated, yeah, I understand. Naria came in front of Myri, looked him straight in the eye and said, no matter what, humans are still fighting fiercely to win. As for the compassion you don't have, instead of having Arlo flick your head for 100 days, I'm sure the experience here will be much more worthwhile, right? Myri thought deeply, her heart must be hiding something, she doesn't have it. Haeyoung spoke urgently again, but doesn't that mean we have to kill everyone here? Naria coldly replied, so what? The reason we're here is for Myri's growth, if we kill a few people it means that Myri will grow from that experience. It also means that he'll be able to save more people, isn't that a good thing? Naria said with a devilish look in her eyes. Naria immediately pushed Myri away and said, come in, you have to duel. Haeyoung suddenly shouted, wait, we should go together. Having said that, Haeyoung ran after him and thought to herself, after all, sacrificing for the greater good was inevitable. Naria is smart, so she's not completely wrong, but I'm not sure what's right or wrong anymore. Basement, building 50, duel area, 2 participants were fighting fiercely. The audience was extremely excited and cheered, come hit him harder, you idiot. It's over, no matter who wins, or we both die and become delicious cattle, screams echoing as the two of us deliver fatal blows. The duel area, where human life is on the line, a crowded arena, 500 people who registered for the day will duel each other in order, starting from number 1. The criteria for winning are surrender, incapacitation, and 20 punches as judged by the referee. Once a winner is found, the next contestant is replaced. And so the battle continues, with each contestant carrying their respective numbers, with the loser being allowed to re-register. However, the 50th loser is immediately eliminated. Number 355 wins, number 356 please step into the ring, the referee's voice rang out. Myri, it's your turn. Haeyoung said, and Naria cheered, you can do it, keep it up. The referee announced, both contestants please step into the middle. The other guy looked at Myri with disdain and said, just a brat. The fat guy with number 399 below said, I'm so jealous, I also want to fight that kid. The guy next to him with number 444 also replied, I'll hit his number directly. Myri's opponent arrogantly said, this match is like a free gift, thank you kid. The referee gave the signal, start. The guy rushed forward and punched Myri straight in the face, don't blame me, I was just doing what I was told, the announcement rang out, 1 hit for number 355. The guy suddenly panicked and thought to himself, what is this, it's like I'm punching a brick, his hands were shaking. The kid must have been trained very often, but it can't be, he said, and hit Myri continuously, the announcement continued, number 355, 2, 3, 14, 15 hits. Haeyoung outside was panicking, oh my god, I think something is still wrong with Myri, Myri is about to lose, and Naria was deep in thought. While being attacked by that person, Myri did not react at all. In his mind, he only had the idea that he had no ambition to win. Myri seemed to be floating in the air, he kept thinking, what is it, he still doesn't know. The audience was getting more and more excited, cheering, hurry up and finish it, it's been a long time since we had a kid, he must be delicious. The announcement continued, number 355, 19 hits. The guy knocked Myri to the ground. He charged towards Myri and shouted, "This will be the final blow, this should be a good fight, kid." Myri remained motionless. Myri just bowed her head. Suddenly a voice rang out, making him wake up, tilting his head 53 degrees to the left. He unexpectedly dodged the other guy's kick. Great, the same voice continued to ring out, "Don't think of it as fighting an opponent, think of it as stretching out your hand." Myri stepped forward and punched that guy straight in the stomach. The punch sent him flying all the way to the wall of the arena. Everyone was stunned. Very well, there's no need to think too much about it now, hesitating and extending your fist won't bring any benefits. That voice still rang out and Myri still stood there. Fight like you always do, Myri looked back. You did well on your own, Myri, a strange person standing below the ring said. Myri glanced back, his eyes cold. A mysterious person was standing behind the dividing net, watching Myri very intently. On this side, Haeyoung was happy because Myri won. She couldn't contain her joy and exclaimed, "Myri won. I thought he really lost, so I was worried to death." Standing on the podium and looking down into the distance made Haeyoung outside wonder where he was looking. Neria looked at Myri with a seductive gaze and said, "It was me who made Myri like that, I created a welcoming image for Myri. Standing in front of Myri right now is a trustworthy figure, but I don't know who that figure is." The image of the mysterious person standing watching just now gradually faded and disappeared. Myri realized and said to herself, "Oh, so it's not real." The referee spoke, "Number 355 lost, number 356 won." On the field was the image of the opponent lying down with a very expressive face. The referee held up the name tag 355 and wondered, hasn't this guy lost 5 times already? So, number 355 confirmed to become food. The referee said as he threw number 355 towards the starving people in the cage not far away. They fought over the person who had just been thrown in, trampling over each other to get to the food. The scene was chaotic. They enjoyed their food and complained but eventually accepted it because the 355 was of poor quality. Haeyoung and Neria stood outside watching with 2 completely different attitudes. Haeyoung seemed scared, covering her mouth with her hand and trembling as she said, "Is this what it means to be food? It's too much. How can it be so cruel?" Neria, on the other hand, found this to be normal, her face expressionless as she said indifferently, "What's so surprising? This is the current state of humanity." Myri on this side looked at this scene and could only ponder. He must have many thoughts in his mind. Myri continues with the matches. He took down his opponents one after another without wasting too much time. The mysterious phantom person appeared briefly during Myri's matches. The referee's voice rang out again. Number 356 won. Notification display system. First floor above ground. With the help of the welcoming image of that trustworthy person, Myri quickly went straight to the first floor above ground. Myri, Neria, and Haeyoung stepped out of the elevator. Haeyoung followed behind and expressed her admiration for Myri endlessly. Her eyes lit up as she said, "I didn't expect to get to the first floor so quickly, Myri is amazing. Moreover, we can even form a team. How lucky." There is also a team system in Nagwon Club. A team consists of 2 to 5 members. Then the team will advance to the next floor. Neria looked at Myri and said, "I felt relieved that he no longer hesitated when he struck, but I still felt like something was missing." Neria started calculating. Myri's physical strength was too strong, so even without the will to fight, she could win easily. On the contrary, this made him act more like a machine. She had to do something next time. Neria was still calculating when Haeyoung interrupted her. Haeyoung excitedly said to everyone, "I just heard someone is going to the flea market. How about we try going there once?" Neria thought it was too childish and stopped her. Does she think this is a tourist spot? Not likely. Inside Jeju Island, Nagwon Market, the whole market was bustling with people bustling back and forth. Seeing this hustle and bustle, Haeyoung couldn't help but happily say, "There really is a flea market." The 3 of them were walking in the market when Neria's true form appeared. She was surprised and said, "How could there be a place like this even in a slaughterhouse? There didn't seem to be any zombies here. The Jeju Island data I have doesn't match up at all. Apparently, the management staff should report on the slaughterhouse management status. It looks like someone falsified the report." Haeyoung's voice echoed throughout the market. She and Myri went to a fried chicken shop. Haeyoung said, "Uncle, please give me a fried chicken hot dog." The sales staff was also very enthusiastic in selling to them. Haeyoung saw something strange and wondered, "What is that win coin?" Hearing this, the sales clerk thought Haeyoung was swindling money and shouted loudly, "What the hell, you guys don't have any money and still want to cheat me?" While saying that, he waved his hand to chase the customer away. Only Haeyoung was still innocently explaining that she didn't know what it was, so she asked, "While I was wondering what to do, a hand reached out with money to pay the salesperson and said, 'Here is 10 win coins. Get one for each of them.'" This surprised Haeyoung, but Myri didn't care much. He was still standing there without saying anything. The person who just paid looked at Myri and said, "So you safely made it to the ground floor, thank goodness. It's been a long time since I've seen a kid participate, so I was really worried. You're amazing anyway, although your ability is a bit unusual. I didn't expect you to advance to the upper level so quickly. For me, it took months, and I'm struggling because I've lost 4 matches already." It turns out that the person who paid Myri and Haeyoung was Hyunjin, but it seems that neither of them remembers who he is. On the contrary, Hyunjin is very impressed with Myri and is quite excited to see him again. Hyunjin also enthusiastically introduced Myri and Haeon to the general map of this area. If everyone wants to walk around, remember to be careful outside. Walking around the inner area is also safe, but in the outer area, just making eye contact with the security guard is enough to get shot to death. Haeon now had the chance to wonder. She asked Hyunjin, but what was that win coin? Hyunjin also patiently explained to her, this is the first time everyone heard of the win coin, this is the currency used here. As the name suggests, the victory achieved in the match will be converted into coins. 1 coin is equivalent to 1 win. People can exchange money at the exchange station. This station is located on the ground floor of the club. It is rumored that if they accumulate 10,000 win coins, they will be able to escape Jeju Island immediately. Haeon was eating a hot dog when she heard that. Her eyes lit up and she opened her eyes wide, saying, that's why there's this flea market. Naria didn't want to leave them outside for long, so she hugged Myri and Haeon and told them, okay, that's enough fun. Let's go back to practice. Haeon kept bargaining with Naria, but of course Naria didn't agree, so Haeon could only scream, Naria is such a hateful person. Naria hugged both of them and walked away, saying, what's too much? A human fairy like Naria must quickly help Myri get stronger as soon as possible. They just left, leaving Hyunjin standing alone behind, only knowing how to smile and wave goodbye. On the first floor above ground, the players' room, Naria brought the two back to the competition venue. She said, starting from the ground floor, there will only be 1 match per day to ensure quality food. We have agreed on this, so when there is a match, we will go straight to the arena. Haeon came to ensure the food source and was a bit panicked. Naria looked at the problem seriously and said, let's see, there are a lot of errors in the data, so Naria doesn't know either. First of all, I will lower Myri's ability. If Myri continues to be this strong, fighting for the next 100 days won't help in increasing her strength. If I touch your muscle fibers, I can control it to a certain extent. Naria said while using magic on Myri's body and ability. The loudspeaker announcement rang out, inviting contestant number 356 to the arena. Haeon heard the name and couldn't hide his excitement as he said, Myri, it's your turn, let's go. On the first floor of the arena, everyone around was excitedly shouting, let's start quickly, no one has lost 5 matches today. It's number 356, kill them all, I bet these 2 baits win. Myri stepped out. Haeon and Naria stood below watching. Haeon looked up at the stands with some worry and said, what if the people on the ground floor are stronger? Naria still had that expressionless face and said, if that was true, how great would that be? 1 foot steps onto the stage. It seems this person caught Haeon's attention. The person who appeared on the stage was Hyunjin. He saw Myri and said, what a coincidence, meeting each other in such circumstances. The referee's voice sounded, both players prepared. Myri seemed to be calculating something. Hyunjin looked at Myri in front of him, her mood seemed to be not good. He said to himself, having to fight a child is not a good mood at all. The referee did not wait long and said, the match begins. Myri didn't say much and immediately attacked Hyunjin. The surprise attack caught Hyunjin off guard, but he still dodged it. Haeon and Naria were surprised. They dodged Myri's attack. The people on the ground floor were indeed different. Naria also no longer kept her cold face. She also eagerly watched and added, finally there was a worthy opponent. Hyunjin, although he had anticipated Myri's abilities, was still quite surprised by the moves Myri unleashed. He thought, too fast. This brat's ability to reach the upper floor so quickly wasn't due to luck. He couldn't let his guard down just because he was a brat. Both of them launched their attacks towards each other. Everyone below was screaming like crazy, well done number 356, beat him to death. Haeon looked at the situation on the field and said regretfully, only Myri was attacking, so frustrating, I thought I found an opponent. But then Haeon realized something was wrong. Hey wait, that person has lost 4 matches already, if he loses now, won't he become food for the others? Haeon realized and was worried about who to cheer for. Myri and Hyunjin are still in battle. Not long after that a gasp came from Hyunjin. He was now lying on the floor thinking to himself, damn it, I'm going to die. Because I neglected a kid, this is my karma. No, even if I hadn't neglected him, it would have been difficult to narrow this big gap. I've suffered so much up until now, maybe this is a teacher. Hyunjin suddenly remembered his teacher and almost made up his mind to do something. Looks like he'll gather his strength and use his strongest move. Hyunjin was still telling himself, the promise to not get noticed with Master, maybe he couldn't keep it. Hyunjin seemed to have officially joined the game now. He counterattacked Myri and fought together, causing Myri to be cursed by the people below. This also surprised Haeon. What? Myri suddenly wanted to lose the match, and Naria was concentrating on playing something and not paying attention to the match. Although she seemed indifferent, Naria was still silently watching the match. Her eyes were assessing. She didn't know what was happening, but her opponent's strength was different from before. Of course this is not surprising, but this power is very similar. Hyunjin's image appeared in Naria's mind along with a name, Turate. Myri's face turned fierce. He said Turate indignantly. His body immediately trembled, completely different from his demeanor just now. Haeon below the stand saw this and wondered why he suddenly became like this. Something seemed a bit strange. On the contrary, Naria was feeling puzzled and thought to herself, isn't this too much effort, just because the other party's aura is similar to Terate's? Just in case, I told Myri not to use her ability. How will he deal with this interesting situation? It's really worth looking forward to. Myri seemed to lose control. He let out a scream and charged straight towards his opponent. Unlike his shy demeanor just now, Hyunjin became more confident, ready to respond to his attacks. He waved his hand, and he immediately ducked down to avoid it. Then he hit him from above, sending him flying. Seeing his strange expression, he thought to himself, this is strange. Just now, he saw this kid moving like a machine, but now, on the contrary, it was as if he had turned into a wild animal. Myri flipped over and kicked him, which he immediately blocked. He grabbed his legs with both hands and threw him far away to the other side of the stands. He seemed to have lost control, quickly turning around, his eyes like a wild animal. Rushed towards Hyunjin. Seeing that, he blurted out, damn it, you can still endure this. Then he used a series of palm strikes, beating him mercilessly. Extremely professional style. The audience saw the sudden change in the situation and got angry and shouted, the fight was great just now, what are you doing, number 365? Can't you even fight properly? You might as well die, that's right, you'd rather become our food. Myri inside collapsed and gasped for breath. His eyes lit up, and he let out a roar like an out-of-control beast. It seems like he wants to break the rules and unleash his powers. Naria below observed the situation and reminded, oh my god, no, I clearly said not to use the ability, if this place flies away it will be troublesome. Are you going to repeat that? Myri paused. The strange hat girl appeared again and said, letting your emotions flare up is useless. You've experienced it before, wanting to defeat Turate, but what you do now is any different from what you did then. It was only after he lost everything that he realized, his emotionless eyes seemed to have been moved by her words. He quickly regained his energy. She saw that and continued, control your own emotions, think of a way to defeat the opponent with reason. Then he quickly regained his composure and stood up. Feeling that, Hyunjin was startled and thought, what, the atmosphere around him changed again? On this side, she continued to say, how have you been fighting all this time? You were screaming and running straight towards your opponent, no. Think about it, how have you fought so far? Myri raised her hand, in the same pose Hyunjin had just done. Realizing that, he immediately said, did you learn that move from me? It seemed so, the energy he emitted was as terrifying as the way Hyunjin had shown it just now. The entire stadium suddenly emitted a strange light, illuminating a large area. The audience saw this and immediately started to panic. What happened all of a sudden? Why did it feel like the atmosphere suddenly became so heavy? Naria's pupils trembled, her face flushed red, she laughed excitedly as she witnessed the scene before her eyes. Different from the atmosphere over there, what did this leisurely old man suddenly realize? Holding a pipe in his hand, the man sat on the cushion and said, finally, we're here. Back in the match, Hyunjin was sweating profusely as he dodged Myri's attacks. He hit him on the head with his hand, and the heavy hand immediately pronounced, number 42, hit them 20 times. Number 356 lost. Myri looked at the person in front of her panting and suddenly said something. Naria below said, this kid, this is too interesting. Haeon didn't understand what was going on, so he turned around and asked, what's going on? He let out a sigh and laughed. Surprisingly, he could already learn part of the moves just by looking. I felt so pathetic for underestimating this kid. However, it is better that you do not learn this skill. Master said that this is a dangerous skill. After hearing this, you asked, dangerous skill? On this side, a voice said. Sir Iaku, it seems I have found a high-quality food source. The other side replied, oh, is that so? Proceed with the procedure. Oh, and on the way there, make some strawberries, because we have to feed that idiot Arlo. The big guy heard and replied. Yes, I understand. In the stands, the referee approached him and said, number 356, give me your name tag. Meanwhile Hyunjin left while saying, anyway, thanks to you I learned a lot. If there is a chance, I want to fight you again. Hey, Myri didn't care about the referee calling Hyunjin. Explain that move to me in detail. Huh? He replied. Well, unfortunately this is not something I can decide. Sorry. Naria watched everything from below the stands, her face filled with interest as she thought. It was a shame that she didn't get the results she wanted, but I'm sure Myri really needs that person's skills. I can't miss out. No way, Hyunjin said in panic. It's not something I can decide on my own. After the fight between Myri and Hyunjin, Naria chased him everywhere and begged him to teach her skills again. But Hyunjin kept avoiding this. They appear all the time, tell me to teach them. Even crawled out of the toilet to beg him. Made him scream in fear, running away in tears, because Hyunjin hated scary things like that. Feeling unable to bear it, he immediately turned to blame. Why is the kid like this? Aren't you strong enough? What is the reason that you insist on learning that power? Myri listened and fell silent. Then he answered. Because he didn't want to repeat that again. What? He asked again. Even though I didn't understand what he meant, I felt the weight of those words. Did he go through something terrible? Thinking about it, he sighed and said, alright, let me take you to see the master first. Hearing that, she let out a happy howl. Since he was going to take you there anyway, why would he refuse like that? He thought, because even if he did, it would be useless. Master would definitely refuse. Good, he said. Start the district immediately. He said, picking his nose. This is the great sage Kim Jiho, Kim Hyunjin's master. Hearing that, Hyunjin was startled and said. Why? Because this power is very dangerous, master said not to use it carelessly. He calmly replied, because you are weak, you cannot use it carelessly. I said so too, but that kid is on par with you. Do you really think you are on par with that boy? That's why I said you're still very weak. I don't know what method that boy used to restrain his strength. You fought a kid using less than half of his strength. He explained to him. If I fight with the boy's inherent strength, what can I do? Oh no, I'm already in heaven. Hearing that, Naria laughed and said. Oh my, an old man trapped in this place knows. He jumped down from the landing chair. Our tribe lives apart from human civilization. From birth, we have psychic abilities that are passed down from generation to generation. Not long ago, I had a premonition that something bad was going to happen. Right now, my hometown, the place where I was born and raised, is being ravaged by those zombies. I believe that at some point someone will put an end to this. Of course, the center of what I said is that child. After hearing that, he was surprised and thought to himself. Master means half of my strength? I almost died fighting. I didn't expect the master to say that. What kind of power does that kid have? Then he turned around and said, then let's get started. There's no need to drag out this boring time anymore. We're all here to train, right? I will test your current abilities first. Of course, first, there must be some courtesy. Follow me? Thanks to you. He said and bent down. Seeing that, the boy asked. What is it? He explained. Keeping etiquette before battle would go a long way in controlling one's strength. He heard and said, so annoying, he heard and said to himself, this guy is weirder than I thought. Then he immediately went back to explaining in detail. From now on, the power I will give you will be in line with your own will. The core foundation of handling this matter is a calm mind that is not swayed by anything. Being polite to your opponent will bring about a straight will, not being caught up in personal nonsense. Useless thoughts of yourself. Throw them away and focus on yourself. Don't let emotions take over. Focus on why you have to defeat the opponent. Why you have to become strong. Listening to his words of advice. He also recited in his head. Why must he become strong? At this moment the image of the strange girl with the white hat appeared again. Hyunjin watched them practice attentively. Haeyeon was equally focused. Only Naria was unusually excited. Can you do it, kid? He asked him. At this moment, the image of the girl also disappeared because of those words. His hands clasped together. He held them out in front of him. He answered firmly. Of course. Can you do it? He asked Myri. He replied firmly. Of course. He said. Very well. First, can you show me your intention to kill? Hearing him say that, he asked. How? How? Act like you want to kill me literally. Do this, do this. It will help you a lot in your future training. He said while holding out his hand to show him. Hyunjin observed this and said. Speaking of murderous intent. It was the look that Brad had when he fought me. Naria beside him excitedly let out a sound of delight. I can't wait. I want to see Myri's murderous expression. Then you try it. He urged him. But he just grimaced and tried to look bad. It was even funny. Haeyeon on this side saw that and screamed loudly. So cute. Give me another wink, please, she shouted happily. Kim Jiho looked at him and said in confusion, it seems like this kid doesn't understand emotions at all, don't worry, let me slowly explain. Then he returned to the lesson. Do you know how animals live? Since ancient times, our Ayusumi tribe learned how to survive through them. They look simple on the outside. But in reality they are not because each action is linked to their own life. What he needed to learn later was not individual action but their determination, intelligence, and cold-bloodedness. Seeing is believing. With your current level, you only need to practice a few times to understand. Now try attacking me. He then assumed a fighting stance like a bird. He quickly hit him with his hand but he easily dodged it. Not knowing where he got the spoon from, he hit him hard on the head. The three of them sat eating persimmons while watching the other two practice diligently. Only Naria was discouraged inside. She assessed. At first, the old man didn't seem trustworthy. But now she saw that he was indeed a wonderful old man. Even though he had limited Myri's physical strength. But he was a better fighter than she thought. Myri is the same. He can release his physical limits with his own will. Myri's will is stronger than before. Thinking that, she turned to Haeyeon and said, anyway, I want to see Myri's wonderful appearance soon. Haeyeon, her mouth full of cute persimmons, handed her one and said, eat this Naria. Oh thank you, she replied. The weather is getting dark. Myri will be training like crazy for the next few days. Training like this. It's hard to do. Kim Jiho was practicing with Myri when he suddenly realized something. He thought. This is strange. This child's physical strength clearly seemed to pierce the sky. But the child's fists were thrown out in a rhythmic motion. What is it that makes this child hesitate so much? Myri kicked him. He leaned back and said, Myri, do you know about the battle between the best predators? Yes, he replied. He continued. Even though they had everything, they still fought to the end. Can you think of a reason for that? I don't know. He replied calmly. Actually, the answer lies in the question. Since they have everything, they are even more determined to fight. If they fail, they will lose everything. With that, the training stopped. He sat on the rock and said. Game now, why fight? You asked again. Why do I fight? Yes. He replied. He said. Out of anger. What? He asked again. He also pondered. Then he said. Important people kept getting killed, so I felt angry. Kim Ji-ho looked at him silently. Then he pointed at him and said, show me your fist. Myri held out his fist. He observed it for a moment and then said, the bottom line is that you don't want to lose what you have. Right? It's because you're protecting something that you're fighting. The end point of this fist is the reason for the game to win. Now, let's use what I taught you and finish this match. From tomorrow, you can come back and try your hand at the club. Hearing that, Haeon happily said. Wow, everyone worked hard. Neria looked at them and thought. This inspiration is more wonderful than I thought. That old man knew exactly what Myri's problem was. This is something I never said. Kim Ji-ho looked at him with his old eyes and said. I hope what I teach you today will be helpful. After listening, he looked at his fist and pondered for a moment. Go to sleep quickly. He took out his pink leg and waved it. Then he gently lay down and said. Sleeping is also a training method. Hyunjin beside him also said. Everyone worked hard today. It's so cozy. Haeon, who was sharing the blanket with Myri, excitedly replied. Suddenly she looked up at the ceiling and saw a strange object, so she asked. What is that on the ceiling? Oh, that? Hyunjin explained. This is one of our tribe's traditional dolls. I made it to remember those who passed away before me. According to legend, when we are in trouble, the spirits in the doll will protect us from the accident. Kim Ji-ho urged them after hearing that. Go to sleep now. It's very late. Haeon obediently responded with a yes. Early morning. The voice from the loudspeaker at the main auditorium suddenly announced. Number 42. Please proceed to the 50th floor of the club. Hyunjin woke up and heard the announcement and blurted out. What's wrong with this so early in the morning? Kim Ji-ho replied lazily from the side. That's why I told you not to attract attention. Why not Myri but me? I have to go back anyway. He wondered as he walked. He immediately called out to him. I don't know what will happen. You have to be careful. Hearing that, he smiled and turned his head back, obediently replying, yes, I will remember, father. Oh, this guy. He usually calls me master. This is also a training method. He puffed out smoke and blamed him. He immediately smiled and explained. I was at home so I didn't notice. I'll be right back. He said and quickly left the house. Kim Ji-ho inside was silent for a moment and thought. This is strange. Why do I feel uneasy today? I hope this is just a trivial worry. Meanwhile on the 50th floor. Nakwon Club. The elevator just reached 50 on the LED screen. A voice suddenly exclaimed. Ah, it's here. A laughing mutant zombie guard appeared. Go to Mr. Ayaku's office at the end of the hall. He responded with a yes. He immediately bowed down to meet the person and said in a friendly manner. Take your time. Noticing something strange, he turned his head to look at him and thought to himself. Why are the guards so friendly? Maybe each floor has a different way of behaving. Well, let's see what's going on first. This is the first time I've met Ayaku in person. So I'm a little nervous. Seeing him turn away, the security guard revealed his true nature. He stuck out his ugly tongue and gave a sinister laugh. The door opened. A voice said. Number 42. Oh no, it's Hyunjin. Come in. I'm sure you don't need my explanation. Ayaku sat at his desk and looked at him. Hearing that, he said seriously. Huh? If you don't explain to me, then you are the one. What did you call me for? The guy leaned back and replied calmly. You know what? It's not easy to find good quality prey these days. I don't know if it's because there aren't any talented people these days. But there were plenty in the past. So I called. He hadn't finished his sentence when a pink hand covered his mouth. Ayaku turned around and said. What did you come for? It's because high-quality bait tastes good. At this moment, he seemed to have realized all their intentions. In his heart, he called out to his father. And his father on this side was sitting under the porch watching the moon waiting for him to come home. This kid has been gone for a long time and hasn't come back yet. He blurted out. Suddenly, there were footsteps coming from afar. Hearing that, he shouted. This kid Hyunjin. I wonder if I'm worried. Why are you coming back so late? As soon as he finished speaking, a big man appeared. He placed a large bag in front of him. Seeing a stranger, he shouted. Who are you? Where is Hyunjin? He quickly replied. Number 42 is here. Where is number 356? He did not reply to what he said but quickly took the bag and opened it. His face darkened when he saw the head of his beloved son lying motionless inside. The masked and bespectacled subordinate spoke. Number 42 is here. He stood in front of Mr. Ji-ho, who was looking at the bag he was holding in his hand, and continued. Where is number 356? Mr. Ji-ho asked. Huh? His face was filled with shock as he looked at the black bag that was Hyunjin's head. He said, what is this? Mr. Jiho handed over the bag with Neria's picture inside and asked. Souvenir? The subordinate was startled and picked up the bag and asked. What is this? I clearly brought the number 42. Myri, said Jiho. From somewhere, Myri flew in at high speed and kneed the subordinate straight in the face. Ugh, he cried out and flew backwards in pain. Jiho's voice said. You still remember what I taught you, right? Myri replied. Yes. Mr. Jiho sat on the steps and spoke slowly. Okay, then, let the battle begin. Myri is standing on her knees like a superhero after striking in front of Mr. Jiho. Jiho thought. Luckily it was just my silly thoughts. Everything was going just like the green-haired girl said. He said. It seemed like things were going very well. Back to the moment Kim Hyunjin left home. Inside the house, Mr. Jiho heard someone's voice. Okay, I'll go and come back. Neria wearing glasses said. I want to test the results of your training all this time. Compared to being a normal human. Isn't being a zombie better? She continued waving at Hyunjin. What do you think? Hyunjin said. What's going on all of a sudden? And what's with that figure? Neria continued. You have to go to the top floor of the club now, right? Mr. Jiho sat there looking back. Hyunjin continued. Yes, so what? Neria continued. There will be a manager there who is holding Arlo's position. I'm sure that guy will be a worthy opponent for Myri. She continued. So let's go together. Myri was lying on the bed while Haeon sat next to her listening. To kill that guy, Neria appeared behind the subordinate who was covering Hyunjin's mouth when she said that. Hello, I'm here too, don't you know? Ayaku saw and asked. What are you? Neria put her hands on her hips and continued. It was you, Ayaku, who falsified the information in the report, right? Ayaku stood up and slammed his hand on the table in response. How did you know that? Number 8. Hurry up and deal with it. Neria laughed. Ha ha ha. The number 42's head is here. Someone quickly go get the number 356 head. She held up the black bag to number 8 and said. She flew up to his forehead. Number 8 suddenly exclaimed. What the hell is this green thing? Number 8 muttered as if his memory was controlled. This is number 42. Where is number 356? This is number 42. Where is number 356? He said as he walked out the gate. Ayako called back. Hey number 8, where are you going? Neria, you cute heart shape, thinking. Myri, use this name to warm up. Hyunjin covered his mouth and said nothing. Ayako scratched his head and said. I didn't expect you to handle number 8 like this. Neria said. You look calm too, huh? Ayaka said, glaring. Ha. Hyunjin stepped forward and said. I heard from Neria that you're a guy who doesn't know anything about fighting. Your ability in the data is close to 0. He continued. You've been devouring humanity all this time. Did you build this 50-story building just to pick out high-quality food? He stomped his foot on the table and angrily looked at Ayaku and said. Because of your dirty tricks, hundreds of people have died. Ayaku, even if I die I will never forgive you. His eyes flashed as he continued. Come on, I will destroy this Nakwan club that is also called Paradise of yours. Ayako closed his eyes and replied. Huh, good. That's what I wanted to say. Hyunjin asked back. What? Ayaku turned around and continued walking. The guy with glasses is my manager. But why did I call number 8? Do you know? This guy stroked his strawberry and picked some books from the shelf and continued. Until now, there have been quite a few violent people like you. Among them, there were those who beat my manager to death. After so many changes in managers, it was now the turn of that number 8 guy. The guy pointed somewhere. Ah, here it is, number 42. Neria was beside Hyunjin, not understanding anything. Hyunjin said seriously. It's useless to play tricks. You have nowhere to run. Ayaku turned the page and said. If there is a trick, there is always a way out. That's right. Aren't you curious? What trick did I use to reduce my ability to 0? Ayaku's claw pressed a red button hidden in the book. Ayaku said. Let me see if you can survive like this. A door under his feet opened up a deep hole that Hyunjin suddenly fell into. Both of them fell into the deep pit. Neria cried out. What an unexpected trap. Hyunjin also cried out. Damn it, this bastard. He fell down the hole with a loud bang, making him cry out. Ugh. He immediately seemed to discover something. Here, Hyunjin was surprised as he stood in what looked like a field surrounded by fences. Ayaku, who was walking down the stairs, proudly said. We have already conducted investigations on high-quality people. Sorry, but our club is not something you can just destroy. This is not a place that a human like you can easily destroy. The man continued. Number 42. Your family members went missing 2 years ago. The mother's name is Han Hyosong and the younger sister's name is Kim Eugene. A man was walking from behind Hyunjin with red wounds on his legs as if he had been tortured for a long time. Hyunjin turned around and said, startled. What? It was a body created by two people, Han Hyo-sung and Kim Yoo-jin, stuck together, looking extremely scary, walking forward with a terrifying laugh. Hyunjin exclaimed in shock. Mom, Eugene, why are you two in this form? Ayako laughed contemptuously and said. Number 42 Kim Hyunjin, can you really kill them? Naria switched to analysis mode and said. Oh, turning humans into zombies. Creating chimeras. This Ayako, since when did you steal Nativi's experimental solution? With a terrifying laugh, number 42 rushed towards Hyunjin, causing him to panic. Hyunjin dodged quickly, causing number 42 to miss. He cried out. Cough. Number 42 continued to chase Hyunjin, making him run for his life. Ayako stood outside the fence and said. What? You have to fight back. Ayako shouted mockingly. Hit it, you're good at fighting. Hyunjin's eyes were filled with anger. He accelerated, flying straight towards Ayako, shouting. Ayako. Ayako looked on with a face of contempt. Hyunjin grabbed the fence and screamed. You piece of trash. How dare you do that? He hit the fence repeatedly. I will kill you. Ayako replied from the outside. I built a fence that is easy to break. More importantly. Ayako said threateningly. The person you should be worrying about right now is not me. Number 42 rushed forward and grabbed Hyunjin's neck. Number 42 squeezed Hyunjin's neck with Han Hyo-sung and Kim Yoo-jin's horrified faces making him gasp for breath. Hyunjin slammed into the fence and cried out in pain as the stranglehold got tighter and tighter, and he cried out. He shouted with tears streaming down his face. I will never forgive you. Even if I die, I will curse you. Ayako, Hyunjin's voice rang out with Ayako's contemptuous laugh. That's right, what I really want more than human flesh is this zombie form. They look like animals locked in a zoo. A man looked into the lion cage and said, oh my gosh, poor animal, eat it. Sympathy was wonderful. Ayako stood with a satisfied posture. Behind the fence was Hyunjin lying unconscious. Ayako's face showed clear satisfaction and disdain as he said, ah, poor creature. He laughed madly, laughing like a crazy clown, leaning forward in a terrifying way. Mr. Ayako, something big happened. A person suddenly appeared on the 50th floor. The sound of the walkie-talkie in Ayako's pocket rang out. Ayako wondered. Hey, what's going on? Ayako continued walking. At such a crucial moment. Don't interrupt me, you idiot. Ha, Ayako turned around to find a streak of light passing behind him. Number 8 was on the ground in a small pool of blood. 10 seconds, no 5. Too much. Someone said. Mr. Jiho held his pipe and said, congratulations, Myri. He continued. Finally, the student regained his original form. Myri took the elevator down and looked at Ayako and said. You are Ayako? Ayako replied in surprise. What? Luckily. Myri's face was cold and she began to prepare her posture to speak. Please advise. Number 42 also stood there looking at Hyunjin, who was lying on the floor. Myri's eyes were lifeless. Thoughts flashed through her mind. What about the bad guys? Back in time. Myri was standing in front of Mr. Jiho and asked, do you have to greet bad guys? Mr. Jiho replied. This greeting is more of a show of respect for yourself than for your opponent. The train of thought continued. Still, for those who were hopeless, Myri flew past Ayako in a flash. Well, it was better to just smash them to pieces. Myri said and swung her punch towards Ayako. Ayako suddenly got punched in the face. Ayako cried out. Ha! Master, someone just called. Kim Jiho heard the call and turned around to look. Everyone has left. Why are you still not sleeping? Haeyoung stepped out of the room, asking doubtfully. What can an old man like this do in the middle of the night? I'll just sit here and enjoy the cool breeze. He answered her boredly. He turned to her and asked her again. What are you doing, Haeyoung? Why aren't you sleeping? I can't sleep, she said. What's wrong? He asked, wondering. Haeyoung said hesitantly. It's just that everyone is trying their best. Only I'm still comfortable like this. I think I should at least do something, but I'm holding everyone back. She feels useless. How should I say this? You look so pathetic. Her pessimistic expression made Kim Jiho not know how to respond. He looked at her for a long time. There's no need to rush. Every life has its own stage of blooming. He nodded and advised her. Looking up at the starry blue sky, he added. Some flowers bloom in spring. Some flowers only begin to bloom when autumn is over. For now, Haeyoung just needs to do what he can. Because soon, a strong heart hidden in the world will appear. Haeyoung listened attentively to what he said. Anyone would have such a period. Kim Jiho added. Ha, Ayako's face appeared. One side of his face was being hit by something, distorting it to one side. Ayako said loudly. The image of Myri was hitting the side of Ayako's face. The guy screamed in pain. What is this? Ah, Myri, how did you get here so fast? Naria praised excitedly. The old man's training seems to be good, huh? His face was cold and gloomy. Mairi held the bone and coldly replied. Kill Aaku next, is Arlo right? Huh, Neria looked at him. Mairi flew up. She swung her arm and hit Aaku with the bone. He was so startled that he couldn't react. Really, after this fiery love affair, Neria will be watching to see how much you have improved. Neria said happily while holding the camera. Aaku screamed in pain. He held his head in panic. He endured Mairi's blows. Aaku lost the ability to fight back. The guy kept screaming. He kept hitting the guy. The guy couldn't fight back. Suddenly, Aaku turned to Mairi. He shouted in a challenging voice. You are number 365. You are loser number 42. A loser number 42. How could he be here? As he spoke, Mairi punched him hard in the stomach. Mairi knocked this guy away a long distance. Aaku hit the ground hard with a painful thud. Probably a red switch. This guy is hiding something dangerous. Oh my god. Neria said in surprise. This Aaku guy, the room decoration is similar to Nat F. Neria kept looking around. Reduce stealing all his ideas. Mairi continued to charge at Aaku. You brat. I've been putting up with you for a while now. The guy said in panic. Who gave you permission to touch me? Aaku shouted. He opened his shirt to defend himself with red and blue dots. Do I look like a fool to you? The guy's face still showed fear. Not unexpected. Those circles are getting ready to go. Some ghosts. Bloodshot eyes are flying towards this place. Coming to Mairi's side. They laughed loudly. More and more of them appeared. They looked quite dangerous and strange. Mairi remained motionless and expressionless. Catch that son of a bitch right now. Tear him to pieces and bring him here. Aaku shouted angrily. He gave the order to those monsters. Mairi remained still. There was no trace of fear. They were getting closer and closer to him. I will make you beg for your life. Aaku said triumphantly. He waved his hand. Tossed the bone away. He probably wouldn't need it anymore. The words that Kim Jiho said the day before. To others, it was obvious. But to Mairi, it was something very strange. He remembered the image of him and Kim Jiho talking. Mairi had only one answer. He struck out and was received. It rushed towards him. He caught it. Its cry was strange. Mairi quickly swung her arm and easily defeated one of them. Just win. His eyes were determined and cold. His hands were covered in the guy's slime. That way no one would die. At this moment, sweat was pouring down Ayaku's face in disbelief. Neria's eyes were filled with pride as she continued to record. Laughing loudly. Dodging precisely. Delivering with perfect accuracy. Neria was full of praise. He was still fighting them. It was all recorded by Neria's machine. Mairi was fighting to win. His eyes were terrifyingly lifeless. That's right. Humans are inherently interesting. It's also an attack. But its effectiveness depends on the mind of the person who makes the attack. Kim Jiho pondered. Don't joke around. Aaku screamed in disbelief. This guy kept pressing the round buttons in a panic. You think this is the end? This guy kept challenging Mairi. The more we calmly observed the opponent, the more we saw the irony. A series of ghost names from earlier appeared. Jumping at Mairi, the wild nature in me was clearly revealed. This is what makes us calmly come up with a winning strategy. This is what makes the opponent feel the pressure and give up. A mountain of names piled on Mairi. Suddenly those names seemed about to burst. Aaku shouted. Aaku, who was standing outside, had to dodge the attack that Mairi threw. This is the power I want to teach my students. Show off your skills. He appeared with a pitch-black figure and bloodshot eyes. Mairi looked terrifying at this moment. Now my role is done. I just hope he goes in the right direction. Don't be like that disciple. Kim Jiho was still looking up at the sky, thinking about his disciple. Mairi was still standing there intact. Aaku was scared and pressed himself against the wall, breathing heavily. You killed them all. There's no one left. Aaku couldn't believe his eyes. He asked Mairi again. This guy was scared and tried to call out to the others but to no avail. They must have been called out earlier. Aaku also had no more moves to use against Mairi. Aaku shouted in panic. Don't come here. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Mairi looked at Aaku. Still cold and did not answer. Is it because you played with humans that you became like this? Aaku asked anxiously. That's why you're like this. Aaku didn't understand why Mairi was like this to him. He kept asking in vain. Ayaku's fear turned to anger. His eyes widened. You guys are making fun of me too? Aaku said seriously. Ayaku's eyes spoke of the rage within him. You locked me in a cage. And laughed at me because you pitied me. He remembered his pitiful past when he was locked in a cage. It was you guys. It started it all, didn't it? He said painfully, remembering. This lion with a sorrowful expression was the previous Aaku. Why can't I do it? I'm just giving you back what you did to me. But why am I the one who died? Aaku angrily shouted at Mairi, not accepting it. You won't die because of that. Mairi grabbed Ayaku's head, answering the previous question. But it's because you're Aaku. His expression didn't change. He looked at Aaku and added. Aaku opened his eyes wide in surprise and asked with tears in his eyes. What? No more words were spoken. Ayaku's head had already separated from his body. Mairi had done it. Before Aaku could understand what had happened, his head had been severed from his neck. Mairi threw it hard on the ground. Ayaku's head rolled on the floor. Ho ho, although it's a bit of a shame, his death won't be mentioned in the comments. Neria looked at Ayaku's head and said regretfully. Even if it was mentioned, it would disappear after 2 to 3 weeks. Don't be too sad, my dear. Neria's happy image appeared in Ayaku's eyes, because in this world there are tragedies that cannot be revealed. Neria smiled and said, you are just one of the tragedies we pass by. Go away happily. Aaku, Neria said goodbye to Ayaku's bare head lying on the floor. At this moment, Mairi turned and asked Neria. Can we go kill Arlo now? Neria replied excitedly. Of course, to avenge that humiliation. She was looking forward to her previous revenge. But I don't know where Arlo is either. Neria hesitated and thought for a moment before replying. Is he still where we first met him? She wondered. Someone was crying. Both Kim Jiho and Haeong turned to look. Crying? Haeong asked in surprise. Kim Jiho was still looking in that direction without saying a word. Let me go check. It might be a lost child. She quickly ran towards the crying sound. Kim Jiho looked after her without saying a word. Haeong, wait. He didn't have time to stop her. Strawberry. Haeong suddenly stopped. Panicked when she saw something. Give me the strawberry. Something spoke and gradually appeared. The terrifying monster appeared before Haeong. Strawberry. This guy shouted loudly. The monster appeared in front of Haeong. Its big mouth opened, spitting out long, slimy liquid. Arlo. She cried out in both surprise and horror. The guy suddenly grabbed her shoulder violently. She was startled and couldn't dodge. Arlo opened his big mouth right in front of Haeong's head. The big hand still held her shoulder tightly. It was about to hit Haeong. She thought she would lose her life. Her face froze, showing extreme fear. Haeong closed her eyes. Sweat poured down her face. She seemed to have accepted her fate. She was currently trapped and couldn't run. Don't move. Kim Jiho's voice rang out. It's okay. Just stay as you are. I assure you. He nodded his head. He spoke with a firm confidence. He reminded her. At this moment, the other guy. His mouth was still wide open. He had no intention of stopping what he was doing. There was no malice. Kim Jiho continued. So the crying just now was from this guy. His face was covered in tears. Arlo opened his mouth to cry even louder and did nothing to Haeong. He slowly released his grip on her shoulders. Let her go. She still didn't move in fear. Arlo suddenly flew up into the sky and disappeared. Arlo was gone. She opened her eyes wide, not understanding anything. She looked at him suspiciously. She gasped. She collapsed from what had just happened. Are you okay? Kim Jiho ran from afar and asked Haeong. I'm okay, she tried to answer. Arlo suddenly appeared here, so Neria's plan failed? Haeong asked in a worried voice. He calmly reassured her. I don't think so. But it seems like something big is about to happen. She still hasn't calmed down from what happened just now. If you go along the river nearby, you will see a waterfall. Inside there is a cave. Hide in there. Kim Jiho turned away and told her a safe place. She turned back and asked him. Where are you going, master? We have to go to Hyunjin's place. He said seriously. Arlo flew from where Haeong was earlier. Now he landed heavily from the sky, causing a gap in the sky to move. Arlo's sinewy hands clenched the dirt so violently and angrily that a patch of ground caught fire. No more. In a volcano that was about to erupt. This guy now seemed very angry, calling out. Aaku. Maybe he heard that Aaku was dead. Hey, what's going on? Why are all the guards on the 50th floor dead? One of Ayaku's men opened the door. He shouted in panic. Aren't you the next manager? Didn't you hear? The bald guy continued to ask the other guy in the room. Hey, number 9. Are you listening to me? If you have something to say, say it. The redhead remained silent. He sat on the chair, staring at the control panel without moving. Sir Aaku is dead. Suddenly the redhead turned to shout at the buzzcut guy with a scared look on his face. Arlo will go crazy. What? Buzzcut guy was confused. Something was happening. They looked up in wonder. There was some force outside making a ruckus. Ah, it's Arlo. This guy with a tear-stained face cried out in pain. The volcano began to erupt, reaching its peak. Arlo painfully hit the ground, looking up to the sky because he couldn't bear the pain. That action caught the attention of Myri and Neria. The two of them started looking around. Haeon, who was somewhere else, could also see the volcano erupting. She seemed to have guessed something. Move aside, the two underlings pushed each other. The red-headed one ran out in fear, Arlo. Wait, the buzzhead was still confused. Hey, what just happened was real. Hey wait, let's go together. They didn't believe it. The buzzcut guy quickly chased after the other guy. The control room was empty. Arlo appeared, let's go find him. Neria excitedly said to Myri, Neria. Suddenly the phone rang, Haeon called Neria. Arlo, oh my god, is it Haeon? When did I give you the phone? Neria asked her curiously. Neria, what was that volcanic eruption just now? Are people fighting with Arlo now? Haeon quickly asked about the situation over there as she ran. No, not yet. We don't know what that is either. What happened? Neria asked calmly. I saw Arlo just now. I wonder if he went that way. Haeon told her what happened earlier. She saw Arlo. Where did she see him? Neria asked. Myri was still listening to Haeon in a daze. Haeon was hesitant to answer that. We'll go find it, so it's okay. Neria reassured her and was about to hang up. I'm hanging up now. Is there anything I can do to help? Haeon asked hopefully. This volcanic eruption could be dangerous for everyone. She was worried about the two of them. Really, I know you want to help. But didn't I tell you? If I can only save one or two people, then why save them? Neria replied with a troubled frown. Haeon, just hide. I'll take care of everything. Okay. Neria said and hung up. She didn't say anything more. Wait, Neria. Haeon didn't have time to reply. Okay, let's go Myri. Neria flew off excitedly. Myri glanced at the lying man. Dead? Myri asked. Then, he also quickly flew away with Neria. After Neria hung up, Haeon's hands trembled as she held the phone. Saving one or two people. It seemed like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Neria, this idiot. She was furious to the core. Shouted bitter words at Neria. I was also one of the one or two people that Myri saved. Jizian-san, Hema-san, and Junha-san. They are also one of them. The value of a person. You can't just measure it like that. Haeon shouted angrily. She didn't understand how Neria could say such words. She completely opposed it. She angrily slammed the only phone she used to contact them on the ground without mercy. Okay, I'll do my best then. She must be naughty. She opened her eyes wide, gritted her teeth and said with a serious expression. Neria, you are not smart at all. Then she angrily ran away deep into the forest. The volcano erupted bigger and bigger. It was almost about to burst. Jeju Island outskirts. The zombie defense line. A place where you can see the entire volcano. Move aside, a loud scream came from there. What was that? Did anyone wonder where those screams came from? Get out, run fast. A group of people were trying to escape something. They pushed each other and ran. Two other young men saw something strange and asked. Hey, you guys, where are you running from instead of keeping watch? I don't know. What happened to them all of a sudden? One of them wondered. It must be the volcano that's causing them to panic. He calmed himself down by answering himself. The other one looked around to see what was going on. Hey, could it be that? The other guy asked. What? It's Arlo. If he doesn't get the strawberries, he'll go crazy. The two of them were talking about how the others ran away because of Arlo or something. Don't just stand there talking nonsense. Why wouldn't Lord Ayako let that guy eat strawberries? He denied what the guy said. From inside the erupting volcano. Suddenly something flew out. Arlo. This guy landed right next to the two guys. Rocks flew and smashed together. The two guys were terrified. Didn't know what to do. It was Arlo. Arlo's eyes were filled with anger. Look. I told you so. One of them repeated what he said was true. Run away. The two of them saw that the situation was not good and quickly ran away from Arlo. That bastard is crazy, even a zombie will die. The other one screamed in fear. Arlo looked up to the sky and screamed. All around him was lava flowing from the volcano. This guy was slowly losing control. Arlo charged forward. He cut through them. Those who had fled from Arlo were torn to pieces. They were torn to pieces in agony. The screams for help were deafening, help. Arlo tore apart everything in front of him. Arlo was brutal and merciless. He put something in his mouth. Probably some lava he got from the volcano. Food. Arlo growled. Feed me. Arlo shouted. Breathing a large column of fire towards the others. Burn everything down. That fury they cannot avoid. So they perish. Here, perhaps Neria found this place. Where Arlo was making a mess. Right now, Arlo was eating the others. Arlo was holding the head of one of them. This food. Neria exclaimed. Myri suddenly swung her leg and kicked Arlo hard on the top of his head. Arlo was caught off guard and spat out blood. "Enjoy your meal," Neria whispered. Arlo was kicked to the ground with a painful thud. The ground shook. An image of a burning fire appeared. "How long has it been?" "It's been over a week, right?" Neria asked. "It's nice to see you again," Neria said to Arlo. Myri appeared with a burning body and a murderous face along with Neria. Arlo too. An image of the land being gradually burned by a volcanic eruption appeared. This was the area outside Jeju Island just now. White smoke was flying everywhere. Perhaps the fierce battle between Arlo and Myri was taking place. Myri jumped high, dodging Arlo's attack, out of Arlo's reach. Arlo flew after him fiercely, not letting Myri escape. He quickly jumped up, used force and used his weapon to hit Arlo straight on the head, causing this guy to land on his body, causing an earthquake across a large area of land. Not giving Arlo a chance to react, Myri appeared and disappeared. She flew down to where Arlo was lying along with the bone she had thrown away when she hit Aaku earlier. Arlo quickly sat up, but kept his head down, and let out a loud roar. He prepared himself to respond to Myri. Perhaps this guy was preparing to launch some dangerous move. As expected, Arlo suddenly shot a pillar of fire towards Myri. Unfortunately, Myri was hit by that attack. One side of his face was burned away. It was all bone, but he felt no pain. Perhaps it was because of his appearance that fire had no effect on him. He remained silent, returning another blow to Arlo. He also spat out a black liquid like the way Arlo breathed fire. And of course Arlo couldn't dodge it. Arlo tried to block that move with his arms. Yeah, that was fun. Neria stood outside and praised Myri. He refused to give up and returned the favor with an identical punch. Suddenly, this guy quickly used both hands to hit Myri's head, causing his head to explode into black liquid. However, he was not hurt at all. Not to be outdone, he used the same move on Arlo. It hurt him badly. The two of them punched and kicked each other with similar moves. It must be said that Myri returned the favor to Arlo with his own moves. Arlo's cheeks were swollen. Sweat was pouring down. He stammered in surprise. "Too angry, huh?" Neria stood beside him, arms crossed, and asked Arlo provocatively. "Sorry, we've changed a lot since then." Neria continued to speak happily. Myri has regained her original strength. She is proud. Arlo was furious. He covered his face and shouted angrily at Neria's words. Myri used a cold face to mock Arlo, responding to him like how Myri hit Arlo just now. "Oh, there, Neria too. Follow Myri's lead." Myri glanced at Arlo. Swinging her legs, she ran to Arlo's side. He attacked continuously, leaving Arlo unable to react. He swung his arm and hit Arlo straight on the body, causing Arlo to fall to the ground. A patch of earth broke into pieces. Myri quickly swung the big bone up with a determined expressionless face looking towards Arlo who had just fallen. He hit Arlo in the air, sending him flying away. He stood watching him fall freely through the air. Arlo fell hard into a nearby bush, in pain. Arlo was shocked and surprised. He quickly sat up and looked up. Oh, a red strawberry was in front of Arlo. Arlo opened his mouth in doubt. Arlo quickly spotted it. Arlo stared at it, then stammered, "Strawberry." Arlo trembled as he reached for the strawberry and tried to pick it up. "Mom, someone just called you." The mother replied, "Well, that's it. Isn't it because your grandmother likes it?" The mother asked the doubting child in return. "Eating strawberries makes me feel like I am with my child's grandmother," the mother explained to her child. So the mother learned more about strawberries. That was the answer to the question I often asked my mother. At that time, I did not understand its meaning. The child was absent-minded, eyes wide open listening to what his mother said but still did not understand clearly what she said. It wasn't long before I understood. A tragedy happened that made the child realize. Suddenly, an image of Arlo killing his mother appeared. The mother was lying in a pool of blood, no longer intact. The child was nowhere to be seen. Only Arlo was sitting right next to her. Mom, the monster called her mom. It turned out that Arlo was remembering his past. Arlo panicked, holding his head and screaming in pain, tears streaming down his face. What are you doing? This guy is tormenting himself for doing something terrible. I became a zombie and ate my own mother. That was the end for Arlo. Except, Arlo opened his mouth wide, preparing to put the strawberry he had just taken into his mouth, for a few moments. In that moment, it seemed like my mother was with me. Arlo slept peacefully in the grass where the strawberry was found, thinking back to the past. Arlo thought of his mother when he saw the strawberry. I felt comforted by my mistake and my mother said I was doing a good job. Arlo thought and cried. Arlo stopped screaming. Arlo looked miserable. Myri's unexpected stomp on that strawberry, which surprised Arlo, was my only support. That made Arlo completely collapse. Arlo fell to his knees, trembling and said, "Why did you do that?" "I was trying to." Arlo questioned Myri. "No matter how much I remember, I try to hold it in, I try not to make the same mistake again." Arlo opened his mouth and cried even louder, angrily saying to Myri, "Why did you do this to me?" Arlo was not satisfied, he suddenly flew to hug on Myri and flew away. Arlo flew so fast that the trees he flew over fell down. Meanwhile, Myri did not panic, she raised her hand and hit Arlo's shoulder hard. Myri was surprised, it was getting harder and harder, the hand he had used to hit Arlo earlier was significantly dislocated, but Arlo's shoulder showed no signs of being injured. Without delay, Myri quickly split herself in two and escaped from Arlo's arms. Then he immediately launched his attack on Arlo. The sharp bones he shot out continuously attacked Arlo. It stabbed Arlo repeatedly, but he seemed to be unharmed. Arlo shouted loudly and quickly caught up with Myri. Arlo kicked his feet and jumped, preparing to fly up high with Myri. At this moment, he was still floating in the sky. Myri turned around and focused on preparing for the decisive blow, receiving Arlo's move. He swung his arm behind him. A strong force appeared on his elbow, making his arm seem to double in strength. He landed on the ground gently intact, but Arlo did not. Two parts of this guy's body were lying on the ground. A strange laugh rang out, Myri turned her back, her eyes looking towards Arlo's corpse. Both parts of Arlo were doing something terrifying, they were moving closer together, forming two entities. Now there are two Arlos, they look exactly the same, probably the same power. Myri still looked at them without showing any surprise and said nothing. They turned into two Arlos, Neria said in surprise. Without hesitation, the two Arlos quickly attacked Myri, hitting him hard in the abdomen. Once again, it caused his body to split in two. His head hit the ground hard, is this the same ability as Terate? This is a headache, Neria thought with her mouth wide open in surprise. Not knowing which one had the heart, Neria continued to look at the two Arlos standing there in doubt. They were so similar that Neria couldn't tell. Furthermore, the abilities of both of these individuals were the same. On the contrary, their bodies were even more sturdy. If these two copies are not real, they can multiply even more. If you fight well, you will be able to fight hundreds of Arlos. These guys will gradually become stronger. Neria smiled and held a magnifying glass to analyze, reminding Myri to pay attention. Myri lying on the ground turned to face Neria and asked. So that guy can't die? No, it doesn't seem like that. Neria thought for a moment and then replied. If he can't die, then I guess it has something to do with the same mistake you made. Myri struggled to sit up. Neria continued. But I couldn't see it. Well, it seems Myri understands. He replied. In fact, Myri had already sympathized with Arlo's pain, as her way of speaking and expression were exactly the same as Myri's. The two Arlos continued to charge at him. So, Myri's two hands blocked it at the same time. The two Arlo punches were fierce. They seemed determined to kill Myri. He knew that very well. Just bear with it a little longer, Myri said to the two Arlos attacking her. Neria with sparkling eyes looking forward suddenly exclaimed. Oh my god, there are two Myri. Myri turned back to look at an Arlo who had sent his clone flying with just one punch. Myri still looked with a cold, emotionless face without responding. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Myri with interest and continued, although it was impossible to compare quantity with quantity. Myri splits into multiple copies of herself. They all rushed towards Arlo's individuals. Neria said, they could use these clones to trick him. Myri's clones charged forward and were sent flying by Arlo's clones one after another in the blink of an eye. But it was enough time for Myri to rush in with a blow that split one of the guy's bodies in half and finished him off. Then he raised his hand and used magic. The ropes of Leo wrapped tightly around the remaining man, making him unable to move. There was an explosion, and the other guy's body was blown into pieces in front of Myri. He looked ahead. Neria also spoke up, the core problem here is that it cannot be solved completely. Before him was an army of Arlo individuals advancing with dense killing intent. Neria looked and continued, I thought that except for one individual, all of them were fake, but that was not the case. They all might have hearts, in other words they are all the real Arlo. She saw through those black bodies that there was a heart. Arlo's individuals are moving to knock away Myri's clones. The giant volcanoes are emitting black smoke and boiling and could erupt at any moment. Inside the crater of the volcano, the bodies of many people are gradually being swallowed by lava. Their bodies were burned beyond recognition, but one pair of legs was still moving. Hyunjin remembers asking as a child, what is this? Hyunjin was carrying his little sister on his back, pointed at the doll and laughed, saying, Mom, you made it so ugly. Look at it, it's peeling off here. Han Hyoseong spoke up in confusion, no, praise me, just praise me Hyunjin. He looked at his mother innocently and asked, what is this? Han Hyoseong replied, this kid is asking innocently, this is a traditional doll of our tribe, I got it from your grandmother. She sat down and gently gave the doll to Hyunjin and continued, if there were no parents left in this world when Hyunjin was in danger, the doll with its soul would help the children. She smiled happily and said, so you must take good care of the doll. Han Hyoseong swam in the hot lava, using her hands to push Hyunjin who was lying unconscious on the rock away. She looked at Hyunjin affectionately and thought to herself, even if mommy became a doll, mommy would still protect Hyunjin. She smiled brightly and said goodbye to Hyunjin for the last time. The rock was pushed to the exit. Han Hyoseong looked at Hyunjin who was still lying unconscious while he was slowly being eaten away by the lava. He looked at his wife who was sinking and said, thank you wife for saving our Hyunjin. Han Hyoseong did not respond. She looked at him and smiled. Her eyes closed in peace and she sank into the molten lava. Only Kim Jiho stood there looking at Hyunjin lying unconscious on the rock. He spoke sadly. Don't worry, I'll follow you soon, we'll talk again. Until then, I'll take care of Hyunjin. He said, then walked over and sat down to shake Hyunjin awake. Hyunjin, wake up, there are still many people who need our help. Hyunjin's hands tightly grasped his mother's doll. Myri is fighting Arlo's individuals. With one punch he cut the bodies of countless men in half. Suddenly an arm rose from the ground and grabbed his leg. Then another guy ran up and kicked him away, cutting off his leg. But recovering quickly, he still backed away without panic. Neria spoke up. Aside from its terrifying reproductive ability, I never imagined this. A giant hand touched the ground. Giant Arlos appeared from the craters. Below was a massive army of Arlo's individuals advancing towards Myri. Neria suddenly continued, all created by Arlo. This is too much, she said, staring. Although she had the will to win against her opponent, she did not have the ability to analyze her opponent's abilities. Myri at this moment, she looked at Myri who was standing alone among thousands of Arlo's individuals and continued, unable to defeat Arlo. Saying that, Neria flew to Myri and asked, you seem exhausted, don't you? He replied with a confused look on his face, I don't know what to do. Neria replied, it's okay, and threw Myri a pair of glasses. She continued, because I will be the one to think and you just need to act. Myri looked at the glasses in her hand. Neria confidently said, that's why I chose to accompany you. Alright, Myri can't win if I don't do it. She looked smug. Suddenly a satellite touched her, activating Neria's eyes. Then she asked Myri, how is it, can you see Arlo's position clearly? He wore the linked glasses and replied. Yeah. Neria explained that the analysis showed that the heart rates of each individual were the same. As she spoke, she held out a few hearts as simulations. Hearts of all individuals at the same time. Then she asked Myri, how can you do it? Myri nodded in agreement. Then he quickly accelerated at an extremely fast speed. Arlo's current population is 1,325,000. It is feasible to execute all those individuals at once. Myri rushed at a speed invisible to the naked eye, killing them one by one. He also counted mentally, 30, 650, 5,432. Neria continued, although your abilities are beyond my imagination. The number of Arlo's individuals that Myri took down increased rapidly. She continued smugly, like Myri's ability. The number finally reached 1,325,000. Neria said, I can't measure it either. With that, Myri just finished killing the last one. He gently landed on the ground. He said with cold, lifeless eyes, what number is it? The ground suddenly shook and began to crack in all directions. On Myri and Neria stood on the cracked ground and she spoke. Jeju Island collapsed, probably because the Arlo entity that supported the island disappeared, which is why it became like that. But anyway, it's all over now, let's go find Heian. Saying that, Neria flew away. Myri was suddenly attracted by something and he let out a cry. His face turned away expressionlessly, but he still wondered, did he think he heard crying? He glided lightly over the cracks in the ground. Suddenly he stopped. In front of him was a huge pit. Inside was radiating light and heat of lava, he thought, the star heart. Jang Jo-hyun clenched his stick and said loudly, what do you still want to do? Think carefully. He stood in front of a crowd of people and said loudly, isn't the priority right now to survive? Even if we join forces it won't be enough. What the hell is wrong with you? The red-haired zombie standing opposite replied, because Lee Ji-kyung appeared, that's why I'm like this, you idiot. He shouted, what can you do to help? It's chaos out there and you want to live there, but no matter where you go you'll die. Since that's the case, I'll eat it all without regret and quickly end my life in peace. After saying that, he quickly ran forward, causing everyone to panic and scream and beg, please. Haeyoung suddenly appeared and hit the red-haired zombie on the head, causing him to feel a sharp pain. He stopped, holding his head and screaming, damn it, what? Before he could finish speaking, Haeyoung turned around and held out her hand to Jang Jo-hyun and said, Uncle, give me that. He was confused and said, here, then gave me the cake. She helplessly said, not a hot dog, give me the log. The red-haired zombie angrily said loudly, pink shirt, did that guy bring a human here, that idiot, even though I was following him, this is something I don't know. Then Haeyoung rushed towards him with a stick, the red-haired zombie said in a ready-to-retaliate stance. What is this, you want to fight me? She thought back to the past and thought, I have been observing training sessions for months, although not perfect, I have learned some things. Haeyoung with determination moved forward and thought, I'm not weak enough to be looked down upon like this. The red-haired zombie with a punch that went through her head, he spoke, what is this? Meanwhile, witnessing that scene made everyone scream in horror. He continued with disdain, the brat charged in with such a majestic aura, I wonder if she can even fight. It turned out that there was nothing special. As soon as he finished speaking, Haeyoung suddenly appeared below, hit his leg and said, go away and go somewhere else. He looked down with a terrifying face that made others shiver when they saw it. He wondered to himself, what is this? It was clearly dead just now, he thought as he reached out his hand. He grabbed Haeyoung, squeezed her and said angrily, I'm about to die so I have a problem with my mind, making her scream in pain. As he said that, this time for sure, he would tear her body apart. I will kill you. The red-haired zombie turned back with a face full of fear and incomprehension and thought to himself. What the hell is going on? This time I'll definitely kill this brat. He shouted, you brat, what the hell are you? Then he threw Haeyoung away making her scream. He broke out in a cold sweat and wondered in fear, was he crazy, how could this be? Everyone was also talking excitedly about what had just happened before their eyes. It was obvious that the girl had died just now. I saw it too. Others also spoke up. But why is she still safe and sound, as if nothing had happened? Others replied. So, did we see wrongly? That's right, we saw wrongly because we were in a critical situation. Jang Jo-hyun approached Haeyoung and asked, little girl, what happened just now? Did you use supernatural powers? His question surprised her. Then she looked at Jang Jo-hyun and replied. What are you saying? Suddenly the ground cracked. A hole appeared, below was molten lava under the red-haired zombie's feet, causing him to fall. He fell with the heat of the lava, only letting out weak cries. Everyone was shocked by what had just happened. He shouted. Help me, can anyone help? Before he could finish his sentence, Han was swallowed by lava. Then everyone shouted. Run away from here, this place is not safe anymore. With that, a person ran away. Haeyoung spoke. Everyone. Hyunjin stood in front of the entrance and shouted. Everyone, don't leave here. Everyone wondered. What is it? He continued. Everyone stay inside here, we will protect you. Then a wave of power surrounded the cave. Haeyeon looked up and exclaimed. This is, Master, it turns out to be Kim Ji-ho standing in front of the fireballs flying towards the cave. He shouted, Yusuami, and a shield appeared to block the incoming fireballs. A group of people ran towards the cave and shouted. Over here, number 9 ran this way. Let's go, it's safe there. Hyunjin turned his head to look at the group. He thought to himself as he looked at the keychain that was drawn in the shape of his mother, Mom, your sacrifice will not be in vain. Thinking, he took a fighting stance and ordered the others. Stop, you guys are not allowed to go inside. The huge heart lying in the lava-filled pit that Onmiri saw was groaning saying, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Onmiri stood there and listened to the heart speak. He immediately remembered Arlo. He raised his hand with a cold look, thinking, he must quickly kill him and leave. The other heart spoke again, save me, I don't want to see my mother again. His eyes looked at the heart with indifference. You ask, why? Onmiri sat down near the heart and asked again, why don't you want to see mother? The heart impatiently said loudly, someone is over there. He continued, wouldn't it be better to see his mother again? The words made his heart silent. Then he replied, no, his eyes were pitch black but there was no life in them. My heart continued, I have done wrong to my mother. She will not welcome me happily anymore. Do we even have an explanation? Before her heart could finish, Onmiri shouted, wrong, along with a bone piercing straight into her heart. He said, Mom always welcomes us. He sat there thinking and then continued. So when you meet your mother, just smile at her. The silent heart did not respond. The two of them stood there without saying another word, as if those words had made their hearts understand something. Onmiri silently looked at the heart. Neria flew over again with a mocking tone. She really knows how to say touching words, were those the words that Auntie said to him? He stood up and flew away, leaving Neria there. She looked after him and said loudly. What's wrong? Why are you ignoring me? Let's go together. Daron ran, she said over the radio. Safely arrived. The southern front near the Injun border crossing. She jumped from building to building and spoke at the same time. Target? The command room replied. The Special Forces team has already conducted a reconnaissance. She suddenly stopped and said. I know, wait a minute, I'll be right there. This cave is located at the farthest point from the volcano. A dark cave appears at the foot of the mountain. Kim Ji-ho stood on the mountain. He was deep in thought. Unless the zombies were idiots. Soon they would all gather towards the cave. Hyunjin couldn't handle all the zombies that were pouring in. Besides, he didn't know when the collapse of Jeju Island would end. He thought as he watched Hyunjin and Haeyeon fighting the zombies. If so, Kim Ji-ho hesitated. A crack appeared under Hyunjin's feet. The only way left was to leave Jeju Island. Kim Ji-ho's train of thought stopped. At this moment, the entire cave under the mountain suddenly flew into the air. Hyunjin suddenly looked up at Kim Ji-ho who was floating and asked. Master, this is, he replied. Don't let anyone out. I'll put it in a safe place. The mountain shook. Hyunjin couldn't stand still to fight. He struggled to say. Wait. The zombies haven't appeared yet. I can't fight in this shaking condition. Kim Ji-ho immediately said. It's okay. Hyunjin was surprised. What? He will definitely come, Kim Ji-ho said. At this moment, thousands of Mairi were flying towards Hyunjin. Dozens of Mairi landed around Hyunjin and Haeyeon. What am I seeing? Hyunjin was surprised. Haeyeon was surprised too. A bunch of Mairi. Kim Ji-ho looked down at the thousands of Mairi and said. Mairi, the crowd said in unison. Yes. Kim Ji-ho asked helplessly. Who will answer me? Well, anyone will do. He continued. There are still quite a few zombies on Jeju Island. Don't let them escape from the island. Kill them all. Kim Ji-ho ordered. All the Mairi flew down from the mountain in the sky. The volcano suddenly erupted. Large cracks appeared on the mountain body. Lava flows break through the mountain cover. erupts outward. A huge explosion appeared all over the sky where Hyunjin and Haeyoung were standing. They were quite surprised. Hyunjin looked at the majestic sight before him. Jeju Island. The image of his family suddenly appeared. At this moment, a strange object fell from the sky, surprising Hyunjin. Myri's head fell into Hyunjin's hands. He said, "Thank you." Hyunjin was silent. Then he smiled at Myri. A day after the explosion on Jeju Island, the survivors built new houses not far away. After Jeju Island was destroyed, a small island was formed nearby. With everyone's contributions in building the island, it was named Yosumi Island in Myri. The cave was placed in another peaceful place by Kim Jiho. It seems like the name is a bit long, Hyunjin said as he looked at the island's name board. Jang Jo-hyun replied. You think so too, right? Hyunjin was confused. Jang Jo-hyun continued. No matter how you look at it, it should be called Hot Dog Island. But this name can't be said to be voted for by everyone. Hyunjin looked at the person in front of him. Puzzled, he asked, "Who are you? When did you appear before me?" Jang Jo-hyun was surprised. "What, don't you remember me?" Jang Jo-hyun warmly extended his hand and said. "Let's say hello formally. I'm Jang Jo-hyun. I'm the one who founded the hot dog company on this island." Hyunjin was surprised. "Why did you start that company?" Jang Jo-hyun replied. "You really don't know anything. I was running a hot dog business at Nagwon Market." At this moment, Haeyoung ran over and interrupted Jang Jo-hyun. "Hyunjin. The teacher said to call you." Hyunjin asked in surprise. "Dad? What's wrong?" The sky was so blue. Haeyoung asked now. "You mean creating a martial art just for Myri? But why is Myri fighting Hyunjin and not the teacher?" Haeyoung wondered. Kim Jiho smiled and replied. "I'm just an ordinary old man now. The sacred power of the tribe only allows me to use it once. So now I don't have any power left." The two stood outside and watched Myri and Hyunjin fight. To find a new path, Hyunjin will be able to help him, Kim Jiho explained. Haeyoung nodded. That's right. He used all his strength to move the island. She continued. If it were me, I would probably be confused about when to use that divine power. You are truly amazing, Master. Kim Jiho smiled. We are just trying to see a bigger future. We can make selfish choices for ourselves. He said. Kim Jiho looked up. Thoughtfully said. Be true to yourself. Be confident in the path you have chosen. And that path is not easy. Haeyeon looked at him. If you learn this martial art, you'll leave? Hyunjin asked while dodging Myri's attack. Yes. Myri replied. Hyunjin said. So that's it. I have so many things to thank you for. You always show up when I need you the most and help me out. Hyunjin confided while the two were still fighting. Hyunjin, with a sweaty face, smiled and said to Myri. In this place, I will also train hard to continue the tribe's belief, to protect the people. So someday, let's meet again. Hyunjin said and threw a punch at Myri. But Hyunjin stopped and said. At that time, I wanted to help you. Myri pondered, then he replied. Yes. As tiny sparks spread and began to light up the surroundings, a world that seemed to be ending was beginning to enter a new beginning. At this moment, on the beach, Naria was building a sandcastle. 6 months later, a dark shadow jumped from one building to the opposite one. I will definitely come. Garam landed and said through the headset. It's been half a year since the plan to take back Changwon was made, a skinny hand was diligently writing. Over the past period of time, we have captured quite a few cities from the zombies. This is the result of building small-scale bases in suitable locations and relentlessly advancing. A haggard Cheon Nuri was sitting at his desk writing something. The Red Cross main base, we have reached the outskirts of Busan, she marked the big city of Busan on the map. But all the entrances to Busan were blocked by a zombie, a silhouette of something appeared. The scene changes to 3 people running very urgently, one of them with long black hair says, let's go, don't make any mistakes today, another red-haired person in the group complains, stop being so pretentious, it's so annoying. Jussie held the shield and shouted, I'm standing right in front of you guys. The number 1 defensive shield at Hongjiang Gate is here. I named that spot the Red Gate Line. Jussie used his shield to jump over the red ropes and break them. Just keep going, bald head, the 2 guys behind him cheered, well done bald head, they were excited. Relying on those guys, Jussie fell to the ground, struggling to speak, the other 2 immediately ran forward and said, don't worry, let us take care of it. There were a total of 3 defensive shields at the Red Gate, each time one shield was broken, more energy would be needed for the next shield, Cheon Nuri pondered. At this moment, Kim Junha and Kim Haemi were walking towards the second shield. Kim Junha excitedly turned to Kim Haemi and said, hey, the second shield is yours, you know. Kim Haemi didn't care and said, I know, just look ahead. Kim Haemi ran towards the shield and used her energy to emit purple light. Kim Junha ran after her and said, now that you can get out of the way, I'll deal with the third shield. Breaking the second barrier was easy enough, but until now no one has been able to break the third barrier. Every time they tried to break it, they encountered difficulties. Kim Junha advanced towards the third barrier with a fireball in his hand. Kim Junha threw the fireball towards the third shield, creating a huge explosion, saying gleefully, "This time I'll be precise and make no mistakes. I know, do it well." Of course, at this moment, Cheon Nuri's eyes were pensive. The team members have gotten a lot stronger. We have successfully broken through the third shield. Kim Junha said exhaustedly on the ground. This feeling of being exhausted is really uncomfortable. Before Myri returned, we were still trying to protect the red gate. I wanted to try investigating that zombie, the blue speaker placed on the table. At this moment the scene changed. Rishura said with a murderous gaze, "After finishing the strategy, send it to Master." "I promise after finishing, I will send it to Master." "I know, just focus," Garam said with a determined look. Rishura shouted, "I promise, I will definitely keep this promise." Garam said angrily, "Honestly." Spetter now sat within the red wire fence smiling mysteriously. "What are the chances of catching Spetter now?" Spetter's bloodshot eyes turned towards Rishuru and Garam. Perhaps this was a battle worth trying since Rishuru was also accompanying them, and as both managers, it was unknown what the abilities of both sides were. Garam's face was quite determined. Spetter smiled provocatively and said, "Just in time, I'm bored to death." "But I didn't expect you to come with Rishuru." Spetter looked towards Rishuru. She sneered, "So you have really become the dog of the humans." Rishuru looked at her silently. Rishuru turned to Garam and complained, annoyed. "Hey Garam, who is he pretending to know this guy? Do you know him?" Garam thought and replied, "Let's see, I must have seen him once on the way here." Garam thought helplessly, "What am I expecting? I'm doing this for Rishuru." Rishuru was electrocuted too many times and lost his memory, thanks to which he got the necessary information, only he turned into a stupid zombie. Rishuru shouted, "You also desire my master," Garam lamented, still crazy about Myri. Garam put his hands on the ground and thought to himself, "Stop thinking nonsense." In short, the two of them couldn't do anything until Myri arrived. "Let's gather information for the future battle first," Garam thought, as she and Rishuru ran towards Spetter. Rishuru realized and said, "I remember now, you're the one who pulled my hair." Back to Cheon Nuri's tent. She looked at the note she wrote and thought, writing this much will help Lee Kyung in the future. Now let's go out. She stepped out and asked, "How is Garam?" Jussie replied, "Commander, just finished." Cheon Nuri was surprised. What did he say? Jussie replied, "Caught him, Spetter." Garam and Rishuru were standing in front of the tent. She was holding a red doll in her hand. Cheon Nuri surprised, "Huh?" Everyone stood around the red figure. Cheon Nuri wondered, "So Spetter died instantly after taking a hit from Rishuru?" "Yes," Garam replied. "She was literally like dust." Garam added, Rishuru's face was expressionless at this moment. Kim Junha was annoyed, no wonder the other guy was so proud. Kim Haemi replied, "Well, look at your expression." Rishuru approached Cheon Nuri and said, "Commander, play a trick and let me meet the master right away." Cheon Nuri replied, "Alright, you've worked hard, go out and rest a bit." Rishuru was angry and shouted, "I told you to meet the master, I worked so hard." Cheon Nuri frowned, "I know, so just go out. If Myri is not here, then what will happen?" "Let me see him, I told you to let me see him, quickly let me see him." Rishuru shouted louder and louder. Cheon Nuri ordered, "Drag this guy away." Kim Junha and Kim Haemi dragged Rishuru out. Rishuru kept struggling, "Let go, the only person who can touch me is the master," Kim Junha said angrily. "Stop it, this bastard," Kim Haemi complained, "Bastard, so dirty." Cheon Nuri said tiredly, "Next time you must definitely come with Kyoho, only then can you control Rishuru." Cheon Nuri turned to Garam and asked, "Did Spetter say anything before he died?" Garam replied, "Yes." Garam recalled the battle just now, she said, right before Rishuru attacked. When Rishuru ran towards Spetter, Spetter was still standing there and said, Turate said, "From the moment you attack me, the war will begin." "You guys started this war," Spetter said, smiling knowingly. When she disappeared, did this doll fall out? Cheon Nuri asked. "Yes," Garam replied. Garam said, "Besides the red gate hasn't disappeared yet, so I think Spetter isn't dead yet." Cheon Nuri replied, "I think so too, the red rope wall is still standing." Cheon Nuri thought about Spetter's words and then spoke, suddenly wanting to put all the responsibility on her side, not knowing what her intentions were. "First, let's go back to Changwon and have a meeting," Cheon Nuri said. Garam immediately said, saying go back. She looked interested again. Cheon Nuri replied in surprise, "Oh really?" Changwon, the government of the massacre, branch 1, a huge hole right on the road. Cheon Nuri was angry. "What is this hole?" A staff member there stood up to explain that because they landed in the wrong location, the location was destroyed like this. Nuri angrily said, "Do you know how hard I worked to restore Changwon?" The staff member was embarrassed. "Even if you told me, it would be the same? Why am I always the one cleaning up behind the scenes?" Cheon Nuri shouted, at which point Garam turned back. Myri saw her. He nodded to Garam. Garam smiled and thought, "It's been a long time since I've seen everyone, so I'm very happy." "Is Jizian okay?" Haeyong asked Kyoho worriedly. Kyoho smiled and replied, "Oh, you don't need to worry." Not long after everyone left, she got better. "She's volunteering in another war zone now," Kyoho said. Haeyong happily said, "Oh, how lucky." Myri was looking at the two of them. Kyoho continued, "If I knew everyone would come back like this, I would have contacted her." "That's right, Jizian made curry before leaving, do you want some?" Kyoho said as he handed the pot of dark soup to Haeyong. She was startled and said, "No, doctor, just eat a lot." "Well, it's not too bad to try. How about Myri?" Kyoho happily brought the steaming skull-shaped soup pot over to Myri. "Do you want some?" Kyoho asked, not wanting to eat. Myri immediately refused. Kyuho said, honestly, I don't know why I regret it. Jussie immediately replied, besides Kyuho, no one else regrets it. At this moment, Kim Haney spoke up. But where is Neria? She asked. Shion Nuri turned back. About 3 months ago, Neria suddenly disappeared. Haeong recounted. Myri has become a lifeline now. I also heard that Neria is worried about the other side. I asked for details but Neria didn't answer my question properly. Haeong continued. Kyuho turned to ask Shion Nuri. Was the other side referring to the captain's side? Shion Nuri replied, it seems so. Shion Nuri thought, although it was not advisable to let down one's guard against Neria. But Neria chose not to turn her back on them. First of all, the matter of this doll is still the top priority. We will talk about Neria later. Shion Nuri said. Everyone focused on the red doll on the table. Shion Nuri slammed his hands on the table and spoke about the Battle of Spetter and the Red Gate in the past 6 months. The Red Army has not made any move. Based on the relevant facts that have come to light, I think this is a declaration of war. She continued sternly. The Red Army is a bunch of people who like to attack people without caring about anything. But it seems like they want to create a good reason for this attack. I don't know why they are being so secretive. There must be some hint in the doll about the future attack. Like information about where they will land. Shion Nuri analyzed. At this moment, the sound of knocking on the door made Kyuho look over in surprise. This guy heard everything. You guys, Rishuru rushed out and shouted. Kyuho panicked. Rishuru, I clearly tied him up. Rishuru rushed towards the doll. He kept shouting. Was it that doll that cursed its owner? Shion Nuri shouted. What nonsense are you suddenly saying? Don't touch it. Kyuho used the remote control. Garam shouted. Kyuho was confused. Wait a minute. Remote control. Myri was still sitting motionless. Rishuru said. This kind of doll. Just tear it apart and it's done. Rishuru shouted and tore the doll into 2 pieces. The red doll was broken in 2. Shion Nuri shouted angrily. What are you doing? Do you know how important this is? Rishuru replied firmly. Master is more important to me than this. Shion Nuri cried out helplessly. Really, suddenly the 2 red doll pieces emitted a pink light. Suddenly the red doll was lifted up. A voice was heard. The game began. Making Shion Nuri surprised. What? What? The doll flew into the air to everyone's bewilderment. A magic circle surrounded it. Come, let's play, the voice echoed again. Shion Nuri panicked. What? What? A purple light appeared in the middle of the building. Suddenly it spread throughout the building. A huge flash of light shot through the air. Then suddenly disappeared into thin air. No, nothing happened, right? Shion Nuri asked. Their room was still the same. At this moment, Shion Nuri's headset transmitted an announcement. Commander. What's wrong? She immediately replied. At the government's research institute of the second branch of the killing. June reported. I just received contact from the transmitter placed at the front battlefield camp. June said in a panic. According to the received content, all the war zones were emitting red light. Shion Nuri was surprised. Eyes wide open. Images of the Crimson Guardians flashed through her mind. 1 person. 2 people. 3 people. 4 people. June continued. They said that the dead Guardians suddenly came back to life. She said the Guardians had died. They had reappeared? Shion Nuri asked in shock. She placed her glasses on the table. Is there anything special? She asked. Some camps said that there were other people besides the Guardians. June on the other side answered. Shion Nuri wearily raised her hand to her face. Rishuru. It's all your fault. Really? No, this was going to happen sooner or later. Think positively. Kyuho. Send Junha and Haney to the eastern camp. Shion Nuri said. Kyuho replied in confusion. Yes. Shion Nuri turned to Rishuru and said. And Rishuru. Go to the northern camp. If you do well, you will be able to talk to Myri. Rishuru said excitedly. Talking to the master. You can't go back on your word. Myri didn't understand what was going on. Unexpectedly. Rishuru kept exclaiming. Shion Nuri turned to Garam. Garam. She went to the southern station. If the situation there is resolved, then join Changwon. Yes. Garam replied. Shion Nuri said, looking nervous. And Myri. You just got back not long ago and things are already getting noisy. But. Go to the west camp. That's where Jizian goes to volunteer. So you won't have any objections, right? Shion Nuri asked. Myri replied. Yes. Okay. Shion Nuri sighed. Good luck to all. She said. Rishuru flew away saying. See you later, master. Myri still silently drove away. Garam also rushed away and whispered. If it's the southern station. Cheon Nuri sat silently. Thinking. Considering the size of each camp's defenses. Before everyone arrives. We still have quite a bit of time. Haeon said worriedly. Commander. I know it's a bit arrogant to say this. But isn't there a camp I can help with? Cheon Nuri comforted Haeon. I understand your feelings. But Haeon. There's nothing you can do to help right now. It's not that I doubt your abilities. But I think it's still too early for you. Cheon Nuri said. Haeon replied rather disappointedly. Yes. Cheon Nuri stood up. Kyuho turned to ask. If we send all the key personnel to the camps, will it be okay? What if the others take this opportunity to attack Changwon? Cheon Nuri turned the gun in his hand and said. Then we must stop them. The priority right now is to minimize the damage to each camp. Cheon Nuri was deep in thought again. Were they keeping quiet all this time to launch a surprise attack? If not, what were they implying? Cheon Nuri loaded the gun in his hand and thought. Anyway, everything was going well for his side. This defensive battle would be a painful experience for everyone. Rise the river. Someone is shouting. Someone's feet appear. Suddenly slipped. Fell down. A red rope puppet from earlier suddenly became large and able to move. Make the employee panic. Suddenly a feather flew and cut across the dummy's name. It's Rishuru. How long has it been since I last talked to Master? I wonder how many months. Rishuru said absent-mindedly. Oh my gosh, there's so much to tell Master. Rishuru shouted in excitement. He fell backwards. Huh? Rishuru was surprised. A guy who looked exactly like Rishuru but was all red appeared. Rishuru was surprised. Who is this guy? Why does he look like me? Suddenly that guy attacked Rishuru. Ah, I see. You want a master too, right? Rishuru said with a cold gaze. Rishuru attacked and sent the other flying. He shouted excitedly. Good. Let's have a battle for mastery. The winner will be the one who wins the person's trust. Rishuru hovered above the guardian and said. Elsewhere, a tornado appeared. Coming from the left wing. Right wing angle. Garam is under attack. Another guardian angel. Garam thought he could see the direction of the guy's attack clearly. He knew how to avoid it. But the guardian god had thousands of small eyes inside his eyes. His whole body was also glowing red. Guardian, Garam immediately remembered the past. At that moment, she was scared and sat down. At that moment, she looked at Myri fearfully. She said, that guy is a Red Army officer. Don't be reckless. We have to run. Back to the present, Garam muttered to himself. His body was not moving as he wanted. Her hands were shaking. Commander, I'm here. I ran into the Guardian at the southern camp. Luckily there was no major damage. Garam said through the headset. Cheon Nuri asked on the other side. Alright, you've worked hard. How's it going? Garam replied. The Guardian spirit is currently unconscious. He's like a scarecrow created by Spetter. Cheon Nuri said slowly. No, I'm not talking about the Guardian spirit. It's you. Can we win? Cheon Nuri asked. Garam was silent at this point. Cheon Nuri continued. If it's too difficult, go to another camp. I can't handle it. Garam interrupted Cheon Nuri. The Guardian was now heading towards her. Garam thought slowly. Only now did he feel it. The fear and pressure that the captain felt. But with a sense of responsibility, Garam said and then displayed the green sphere between his hands. I have no time for fear, Garam told himself. Now on Myri's side. There were quite a few puppets. The staff there were struggling. Myri ran through the chaos thinking. Where was it? A mannequin is holding an employee captive. A bone went through the dummy's head. It's Myri's. Myri, you came to help me. Thanks to you, I'm alive. The girl who was captured by the doll earlier thanked Myri. So it was someone else. Myri thought. Do you know where Jizian is? Myri asked. The girl replied in surprise. Jizian? Are you talking about Jizian? The girl said. If it was Jizian, she would have gone to the eastern camp not long ago. Said we'd go back to Changwon together but she did. East? Myri was surprised. Thanks. Myri said and walked away. The girl pulled Myri's hand and said in confusion. Wait, are you going to leave like that? Can't you help us a little, Myri? She said, now in front of him and countless red mannequins. If you leave, everyone here might die. She said, trembling. She cried. She begged Myri. Please. Please. Myri? Myri was silent. Are you looking for someone? A voice called out. Then go ahead. The voice continued. A large knife fell and stuck in the road. I will protect this place. Myri was surprised. The person continued. Why are you looking at me like that? Didn't I say it? Goblins are existences that transcend the laws of life. Someone was standing on the knife's body and said. A girl with pink twin tails appeared. She smiled and asked Myri. Forgot? My friend. Ah, it's your year. Myri, you should kill her quickly. The ponytailed girl beside him held his hand. Myri told him about the girl in front of him. Year sat on the sword and said. Ah, me. On Myri looked and pointed straight at her. Year was startled and wary. Year. On Myri pointed and called her name wrongly with a nonchalant face. As if for show. Startled her. The girl next to her looked at Myri in surprise. It was Year. She protested. Who the hell is Zia Ira? Just kidding. I was just checking to see if it was true. Myri said matter-of-factly. So you're quite smart. Year complimented in mockery. Year jumped down from the sword stuck in the ground. He said to Myri. Go quickly. You're looking for someone anyway. These remaining dolls. I'll take care of them. He and the girl remained standing there. Suddenly the ponytailed girl shouted at him. No, Myri, you can't just leave like that. Then she turned to Year and said. Why did you say that? The girl pointed at Year and said aggressively. If Myri leaves, we will all die. Aren't you also a mutant zombie? You are absolutely untrustworthy. Year looked at her in surprise when she heard those words. Year sighed. Honestly, I never told you to believe me. Year replied gently. I just want to help. I believe Year had not finished her sentence when a voice interrupted. Aren't we friends? Myri looked over and said to her with confidence. Huh? Year was quite surprised by what Myri just said. Thanks to him, as soon as he finished speaking, Myri flew up into the sky, leaving Year and the ponytailed girl behind. Despite the girl calling him Myri? Year smiled at Myri's actions. Don't worry, Year reassured the girl. The girl flailed her arms in front of her, startled. I'm not going to do anything stupid, she assured. From now on I will. Year held the flaming sword on his shoulder with a determined face and said. Join the human side. A mischievous laugh rang out along with the appearance of a red face that was being punched in the face quite painfully by someone. What are you doing, kid? Is that all you can do? I can't help but laugh. Rishuro laughed as he mocked the guy who was being beaten. That guy's face was pathetic. There was no life in it. Rishuro laughed loudly. Rishuro, how's the situation over there? Someone from the other end of the line asked Rishuro. Commander, don't worry. Rishuro replied as he threw the guy from above to the ground forcefully. This guy is so weak. He looked at the other guy and said with disdain. He was happy that the other guy lost and couldn't fight back. He was only good at imitating appearances and couldn't do anything. Furthermore, this guy's weak point is the doll on his chest. Rishuro said arrogantly as he stepped on the doll. Even if we attack here, it won't do anything to us. Doll? Okay, I understand. The other end of the line replied. They had received the information and quickly hung up. Rishuro, when you're done there, come help us here. Hoyoung called Rishuro to come help. Okay Hoyoung, I'll be right over. Wait a minute. He looked at Hoyoung and smiled and agreed. Rishuro nodded his shoulders. He looked down at the guy lying on the ground. Let's see. Let's deal with this guy. Oh wait. Something occurred to him. Why am I so close to humans? Rishuro wondered to himself. His face was fixed in one direction. East Camp. Do you understand? The other end of the line continued calling. Right now, we can't get close to them. A bunch of dolls are standing in front of the two of them. Especially the girl with the red body. I don't know what to do with the dolls. Kim Hae-mi replied worriedly. Hey, do you want to waste your energy or something? I told you I'll be the one to handle it. Go play somewhere else. Kim Junha suddenly shouted at Hae-mi. Hae-mi gently replied. What have you done so far? I'll do it now. Junha replied helplessly. Suddenly a black shadow flew by in the sky. Kim Hae-mi quickly called out. Hey, master, it was Myri who just flew by. Kim Hae-mi waved at Myri. Said into the sky. Master, over here. Kim Junha asked in surprise. Huh? Why are you calling master? Are you talking about Myri? The person on the other end of the line asked. Yes, I clearly saw you just now. But where did you go in a hurry? Hae-mi replied in confusion. Perhaps Myri didn't hear her calling. Something caught Myri's attention. He turned his head to look. He quickly landed on a tree branch. In front of Myri was a group of children running ahead. Behind was a woman. You guys just go straight. I'll keep an eye on your back, so just keep going. A woman was urging the kids to run as fast as she could. No matter what happens, I'll protect you. Myri stood on the tree branch looking down with an expressionless expression, not saying a word. Suddenly there was a noise on the tree branch. Jizian, the woman from earlier, was startled. Myri was probably gone. Jizian turned back in surprise. Not understanding anything. At this time, Kim Hae-mi and Kim Junha were fighting the dolls. They tried their best to counter the moves that the doll threw at them. Besides, Kim Junha reminded Haemi of the danger, but Haemi didn't have time to dodge. She was hit by a strong blow from the red doll girl. Haemi fell. Kim Junha helplessly screamed. Are you kidding? You couldn't even avoid that blow. Junha's hand continued to fight. The red doll girl released more and more moves. It quickly approached Junha. Okay, you keep fighting like a coward. Kim Junha laughed loudly and said in a challenging tone, come on everyone, I can play with you all day. Suddenly Junha's face showed surprise when the doll's moves were blocked by someone while Kim Junha had not yet made a move. A familiar pair of shoes appeared on the ground. As Myri appeared proudly right behind the red doll. Master, Haemi cried out. It met Myri's expressionless eyes. Myri appeared with a terrifying appearance that made the doll turn its head to look. What is this feeling? Even Kim Junha felt scared looking at Myri right now. Kim Haemi looked and said, the atmosphere is so scary. Nadef has no soul at this moment. She was just a scarecrow woven with mana. The doll that resembled the one Rishuro killed earlier was inside her, without any thoughts. But she was shaking. Her face was filled with fear. So terrible. Her nerve cells were trembling, to be exact, because even though she couldn't think about fear she could still remember how it felt. And as a result her sensory organs chose the most effective way. She pulled the doll out of her body herself to get rid of this fear. The doll in her body was thrown hard to the ground. Kim Junha and Kim Haemi were both surprised and didn't understand anything. What happened? Myri was still standing there, motionless. What did he do that suddenly made Nadef? Myri too. He wondered doubtfully. I haven't done anything yet. Really, how did Myri suddenly appear in the eastern camp? The woman asked. That's right. But fortunately, if the master appears, everything will be resolved. The young man replied. What? Master? Chion Nuri asked curiously. Myri is Myri. They've worked hard anyway. Kyuho replied with a smile. Chion Nuri bowed her head in doubt. Oh well, that's true. Kyuho laughed gleefully. That's right. Kyuho, do you remember when we decided on the signal? Chion Nuri asked. Why did she suddenly mention the signal? He asked doubtfully. Aren't there 2 Rishuru now? We don't know which Rishuru will come so we have to be prepared. She explained. I see. Honestly, it's been so long that I don't remember. Kyuho scratched his face and smiled. Can you tell me again? Seriously, how could you forget? I'll say it again. So listen carefully. She still kept her head down. First of all, Kyuho never called Myri master. That's something you should know, right? Chion Nuri exposed the fake Kyuho. The other Kyuho replied. What? Second, Kyuho won't call the members friends. She said as she pulled out her gun. In the end, things like signals didn't exist. Chion Nuri quickly pointed the gun at the fake Kyuho. You, who are you? That Kyuho guy's face smiled slyly, gradually revealing his true self. Commander, the situation at the eastern camp has been resolved. A young man is reporting the situation to the leader. A ball was thrown at a tree and bounced off. We are currently cleaning up. A group of men in black are setting up tents and cleaning up the remains of the battle. There was no major damage but there was some minor damage. They are still updating the situation. Why is Myri heading east? One of them asked curiously. There was a strange sound coming from the other end of the phone. What was that sound? Commander, are you listening? The reporter asked quickly. Someone was still hitting the ball repeatedly into a nearby tree. Oh my god, is it broken? The reporter complained. Hey, the guy who was hitting the ball just now stopped and answered. Huh? Which way is Changwon? Myri stood in front of him and asked Kim Junha. Junha stopped and turned to look at Myri and said, since when have you been pretending to be so friendly? Go ask someone else. Junha waved him away. Myri looked away hesitantly and spoke. The others were busy. He was the most free. Junha shouted angrily. Are you trying to make fun of me? I wasn't just sitting around. I was watching everyone, didn't I? Junha defended himself. Kim Junha continued speaking with a fierce look. Okay, do you see that building on the other side of the mountain? That's Changwon. Junha pointed to the other side and showed Myri the place. Thank you. Myri thanked him and turned to leave. Hey, wait, Junha suddenly called Myri back. Why are you talking to me so casually? Junha angrily pointed at him and shouted. Don't you even use honorifics when talking to others? How old are you? Myri asked Kim Junha. Junha put his hands on the ground and quickly said. I'm 19 years old, kid. How old are you that you dare to call me that? Myri silently looked away without answering. Kim Junha continued. Looking at your face, you can tell you're younger than me, right? Myri frowned. Glancing at Junha, she whispered. Annoying. I heard everything. Junha shouted angrily. Don't ever open your mouth to talk to me again. Don't appear in front of me again. Despite Junha's angry shout from behind, Myri gradually walked towards Changwon. Whispering more. Too noisy. Once again Junha pointed at Myri and shouted. I heard it. Kim Junha crossed his arms and grimaced. You devil, why do you hate your master so much? Kim Haemi standing next to him asked Junha in confusion. What? When? Junha denied. It's just that his strength is too strong, so he looks really cool. I'm jealous and frustrated. Junha frowned and explained. You talk more honestly than I thought. Haemi showed a look of praise. I'm jealous too, but what can I do? Don't show your hatred so openly. You know that the power that the owner has is not natural. Kim Haemi sternly reminded Junha to be careful. Besides, at least you have family. Haemi glanced at Junha. In Junha's eyes, he probably understood what Haemi said, so he didn't say anything more. Haemi turned around and left. Tell Junha, I'm going first. Don't just sit there lazing around. Come here and help. Kim Junha swung his hand to grab the ball and prepared to throw it, then nodded in agreement with what Haemi said. That's right, there's still family. The ball was thrown hard against the tree and bounced off. What can you say? Junha said. I'm not strong enough to protect that. Junha caught the ball that bounced off the tree and said in disappointment. At this moment, Myri used her power to fly high into the sky. On Myri, someone called out his name loudly and threw a stone across Myri's face. He looked at it suspiciously. Myri jumped and landed on the ground. He thought, what is this? A voice said. Just like that? Jizian appeared, placed both hands on Myri's cheeks, spun around, and spoke loudly. Why don't you say hello? Myri, don't just keep quiet and not protest. Hey, Jizian, if you shake Myri's body and say, oh, why aren't you answering? Are you just going to leave? Jizian said while laughing and squeezing Myri's face. That, Myri stammered in response? Why? Why? What? Jizian questioned him. Because I didn't know what to say. Myri's answer startled Jizian. Jizian listened to him with wide eyes and didn't know what else to say. Is there nothing wrong on Jeju Island? Jizian let go of him and asked. Yes, Myri replied curiously. You've been there for a while, so a lot must have happened, right? Jizian wondered and wanted to hear the story, so she asked him. What happened? Tell me. Why? Myri asked what happened. She didn't want to say much. What the hell? You haven't even greeted me properly yet. What said in an angry voice? Jizian suddenly knelt down beside Myri's feet and said. How will I tell you the story when I meet you later, Mom? Jizian looked up at Myri and smiled as he continued. Let's practice. Myri turned to look at something. Just chatting. What to say? Myri's face was blank and helpless. She said nothing more. Are you hurt anywhere? How is Jeju Island? Jizian kept asking Myri. The sky right now. A beautiful sunset. That. He hugged her. He hesitated and said. We set off for Jeju Island and. What's the matter? Arlo has been found. Myri continued. Jizian was still listening attentively. Myri obediently sat next to Jizian. The two continued to sit there and talk the way Jizian wanted. At this moment, the image of a person holding a gun and continuously shooting at something appeared. It was John Nuri. She was shooting the fake Kyuho. The fake Kyuho flew away, dodging each bullet. He slowly revealed his bright red face. The fake Kyuho quickly walked forward. Without fighting back. John Nuri looked and shouted. That guy. John Nuri shouted angrily. How long were they going to run? Were they playing hide and seek? He ran further and further away. At the fork in the road. The fake Kyuho disappeared. She looked around, not knowing which way he went. Where did he go? She panicked. She held the gun and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. Damn it. I should have trained my stamina. If I had stamina, I would have caught him from the start. She said disappointedly. Okay. Okay. I'll get him. John Nuri closed her eyes. Calmed herself. Just think about where he went. The game began. A doll appeared before her. She stared at it in shock. She tried to remember. John Nuri looked thoughtful. Obviously. That thing said game. She began to analyze the events. When he first appeared. She was sure it wasn't Kyuho and shot him, but he didn't fight back and ran away. That thing also kept its distance from me. Why? Is it because of the game of tag? So maybe the disappearance of that thing meant the game was over. She wondered. At the same time, the space for this game is no longer meaningful. That is, John Nuri realized something. She reached out and turned the doorknob. After leaving the playground, where the player returns to reality, she opened the door and stepped out. She saw the fake Kyuho standing with his back to her. She thought to herself that she must be here. Based on my deduction of Spetter's personality, I guess you'll go to the roof. Although I don't know if that's the correct answer. John Nuri held the gun and pointed it at the fake Kyuho and said loudly. Don't play tricks anymore. You've run out of options. She must be joking. Who the hell are you? Spatter? She moved closer to Kyuho while holding the gun. Where is the real Kyuho? She demanded. I hate sunsets. That Kyuho guy suddenly stepped onto the railing, because if the sun sets, I had a feeling it was going to end. Then, the fake Kyuho with a bright red face suddenly jumped off the railing to the surprised John Nuri. This bastard, she shouted in surprise. I didn't expect him to jump off the building. She couldn't believe her eyes. He fell freely to the ground, leaving John Nuri stunned. He looked up at her and did something. Her eyes widened as she saw him do something. Ha! He with a red face smiled and pointed at her and said, behind. John Nuri didn't have time to react when a guy flew from behind, hugged her, and fell down the stairs with her. What was that expression? It was just for fun. Her face showed surprise. She really didn't understand what was going on. Smile. A grotesque face smiled slyly at her. Time to go home. With that, John fell down the stairs in an instant. John Nuri jumped. The purple-haired man smiled sinisterly. Both of them fell freely down below. John Nuri screamed in fear. Her mind was in chaos. What should she do? If she falls like this, she will surely die. At that moment, she suddenly remembered something from the past. Jun's voice rang in her head. That's right, Commander. Do you want me to start it now? Huh? It seems that the John of the past is instructing John Nuri on how to use the device. We have a technology stored in the lab. But I don't know how it works. If we have a compatible device, it should still be possible to boot it. Do you have the communication device that Neria gave you? I'll boot it up here. Back to reality. John Nuri quickly put her hand in her pocket to search. She remembered. The communication device. But she still couldn't find it. Damn it. Where was it? Seeing the landing distance getting closer and closer, she exclaimed helplessly. It was clearly in the bag. Finally she held a small BC cube in her hand. She was happy. Found it. Now I'll activate it. But before she could finish her thought, the purple-haired man hugged John Nuri's legs tightly, surprising her. She tried her best to kick him to get away and cursed. Let me go. You bastard. But he didn't seem to care about what she said. He held his hand out in front of her. John Nuri angrily held the gun and shot straight at him. At the same time she looked down. In the end, he fell down and turned into a pile of minced meat, and John Nuri, despite having support equipment underneath, was also seriously injured. One of her legs was completely broken. Her weak body was gasping for breath, coughing loudly. The Kyuho impersonator stood in front of her doing something mysterious. John Nuri let out a cry. When he was done, he put his hands in his pockets and walked away. She couldn't bear to ask. Where are you going? At this time, a voice came from the walkie-talkie. Commander, the situation in the eastern camp is stable. We are cleaning up now. The sound continued to play. There was no major damage, but there was some minor damage. Suddenly a voice seemed to ask angrily. And why is that brat Myri here all of a sudden? John Nuri grabbed the walkie-talkie. The voice sounded puzzled and suspicious. What was that sound? John Nuri was in a critical condition right now. She silently prayed that someone would come quickly. The sound came again. Commander, but no longer had the strength to respond. She collapsed on the spot. Garam is fighting the Guardians here. She thought. Over time, I have learned a truth. The transmission of knowledge can help you absorb many things at once. In other words, I can combine Taekwondo and Kayaksen wave. Then she stopped her feet to gain momentum, continuing her train of thought. This is just a simple technique. Destructive power. She gathered all her strength and kicked the Guardian straight in the face. End of thought, it would be many times stronger. The Guardian quickly regained his balance and rushed towards Garam. She also did not hesitate to rush forward. She continuously launched hundreds of moves at the Guardian's body, leaving him no time to counterattack. Then he threw a punch and sent him flying into the air. She gathered her inner strength into her palm. Charged straight at him. The Guardian fell to the ground in pain. Garam slowly walked over, silently reassuring himself. It's not like before. I'm stronger now. She stepped in front of him, preparing to attack for the final time. She also did not forget to mock him. The Guardian spirit was more ordinary than she thought. Inside the building, Jean Dugan asked. How is it? Hachan replied. It looks like Garam won. He immediately smiled proudly. As expected of my daughter. Hachan suggested. We can go out now. Jean Dugan asked again. There are still 2 people who haven't arrived yet. Hachan answered honestly. Yes. Hachan explained. Some people living in the area couldn't get there. Although the Guardian spirit appeared in the direction of the school as a refuge. It would be safer if Garam was at school though because of the strange red dolls. They kept circling around us. They ran outside chatting animatedly. Jean Dugan praised. The instructions were short and to the point. A talent like you should be a fireman. What's your name? Hachan answered without hesitation. I'm Hachan. Oh Hachan. Then he reluctantly scratched his head and talked about his situation. I joined Hoyeong in Oryukdo. I planned to leave early, but I never thought I would stay in the combat unit for this long. Jin Dugan wondered. Leaving? Are you looking for someone? He was honest. Before this happened, I had a younger sister who went to Japan to study. He suddenly understood. So that's it. You must be worried. But he proudly boasted. No, she wasn't. She was a very brave girl. He continued. I promised to buy her a meal when I got back to Korea. She must still be alive. Jin Dugan said helplessly. That's enough, or else we'll have to raise the flag of surrender. He continued. I was glad you didn't become a fireman. Hachan asked in surprise. Why? Jin Dugan joked. I thought I would die soon. Over here. Wake up. Garam's voice rang out. The guardian suddenly opened his eyes. She said arrogantly. It's not over yet. She thought to herself. I still want to fight more to see how far my current abilities have gone. The guard suddenly looked up. Then he charged forward. Garam guessed. Here it comes. While dodging the attack, she began to analyze in her mind. The guardian's fighting style was simpler than she thought. Those techniques just now. Before he could finish thinking, he swung his two blades towards Garam. She thought to herself in surprise. I didn't expect a blade to appear. Wait. Where are these aimed? That move just now wasn't aimed at me. Suddenly she looked towards her father and Hachan running on the road. It seemed that he had also seen her with this attack. Garam was completely taken by surprise. It caught her off guard. Without thinking further, she rushed towards the two people who wanted to stop them. Screamed loudly. No way. At this moment, she felt extremely regretful. She thought he had no soul, no ability to think, but he made such a judgment. I will make it in time. I can stop it. I will make it in time. I can stop it. The voice echoed in Garam's head like an encouragement. She thought. If I run at full speed, I will. Suddenly she realized. But. Looking in both directions, she hesitated. Who should she save? In the thick smoke, Garam was almost desperate. One person. I must save one person. Me. Me. Then me. The moment that everyone in this world wants to go back to the most. That is the moment of regret. And today for Garam, she looked towards her father. He pointed in Hachan's direction. Without thinking, she rushed to Hachan to help him dodge the attack. Unfortunately, Jin Dugan was hit by the blade. And for Garam today is that moment. Bodies lay scattered on the street. Garam's eyes saw something that looked very panicked. She ran to a man lying on the road, his stomach bleeding, and shouted in panic. Dad, are you okay? Open your eyes. Damn it, why is this happening? Garam remembered what her father had said just now. Garam, the one in front, not her father. Call him. Tears were streaming down her face as she looked at her father and thought. I don't know what to do, but my body reacted to what my father said. Why is that? Hachan appeared behind Garam, looking surprised, and was about to say something, but was interrupted by Garam. He'd better step aside. But then Hachan's attention was diverted elsewhere. He turned away with a worried expression and said, that guardian bastard. That guardian angel is running away. Garam gritted his teeth and turned back to where Hachan was looking. The place she had just sat on immediately cracked into many pieces, leaving Hachan standing next to her dumbfounded. Garam quickly aimed his attack. To the guardian angel on the run. Her attack hit the guardian. As she attacked him, she thought to herself, it's because of me. What do you mean? Just testing the waters? Don't get cocky. I absolutely will not ignore this kind of thing. Even while fighting, Garam's tears flowed. She was crying her eyes out. Suddenly there was a call from Hachan, Garam over here. The wound isn't as deep as I thought. It might be too late to get him to the hospital. Hachan sat next to Garam's father, covering the wound to stop the bleeding. I will help. I will give him first aid. Hearing that, Garam's face became brighter and more lively. An eye opened. A man holding his head tried to stand up tiredly and said. Did I faint? How long have I been unconscious? What about that bastard? She looked at the tracks on the road. Wondered, was it a thread? So that's who it is, she frowned and said. I used it before in case something bad happened. Anyone who sees it will understand the meaning, so let's follow it. Neri tried to move but it seemed her leg was quite badly injured so it was difficult for her to move. The pain from the wound made Neri cry out. She picked up the gun on the street and said to herself. Okay. Let's see who will be the winner. Neri used all her strength to ignore the pain in her leg and stood up strongly. She thought determinedly. Because I will follow you to the ends of hell. After a while, in front of her was a person wearing white clothes, covered in blood, standing among the corpses. Neri slowly stood behind the man in white with a gun in hand. Neri coughed once. The man in white moved. Neri gritted her teeth and pointed the gun at him. She shouted. What do you want? What is the reason for doing this? Tell me quickly. Open your mouth and speak quickly. Nuri's voice seemed to wake him up. He spoke tremblingly. Commander. Is that the commander? These words struck Nuri's mind straight in the gut, her eyes widening in surprise. The man in white looked at his bloody hands and said tremblingly. I don't remember anything. Light emitted from the doll and then. It was like I was mesmerized by something. I kept spinning around. He said as he turned and walked towards Nuri, making her cry out. Don't come here. His whole face turned back. It was Kyuho. Kyuho was now disfigured, not resembling a conscious human being. He was in tears, covered in blood and tears as he spoke to Nuri. Commander, this isn't my fault, right? Nuri was worried when she saw that face. She was speechless just mentioning Kyuho's name. Kyuho was about to continue when an arrow came from somewhere and aimed straight at his neck. Nuri cried out. Kyuho, are you okay? I finished decoding the Morse code the commander sent, so I came here, but what's with these corpses? Why did Kyuho attack the commander? To these questions, Nuri could only helplessly answer. I don't know. Nuri couldn't take it anymore and collapsed on the street. She covered her face and said. I don't know what the hell is going on anymore. Voices echoed in the hallway. Someone asked. Is there someone impersonating Dr. Kyuho? The other person replied. Yes, the commander said so. Haney and Junha were sitting on chairs in the hospital hallway talking to each other. Haney spoke first. I heard that the doll suddenly lit up during a meeting. Right after that, the possibility of it turning into an imposter was very high. Hearing that, Junha asked again. It's Spetter's ability. But how do you know it's an imposter? Haney continued. It just imitated the appearance and daily habits. I guess it's because it has no memories that they found out. After listening to Haney, Junha stopped wondering. Looking at the strange outfit Haney was wearing, she asked. What are you wearing? Haney patiently answered. I asked the costume department to change for a more comfortable outfit so it would be easier to fight. Junha sarcastically replied. Well, even if I changed, they would still beat me up. Haney refused to give up and said back. I didn't change for you, so leave me alone. They asked about Kyuho again if he was okay, but of course he wasn't because Kyuho was a doctor, but he killed someone. Kyuho was now sitting alone in the room. He looked at his hands. Then scratched his head very upset. He cried.